stops, no one knows. We're going
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Criminality. Or if this is your first time here, welcome to Criminality. I saw some of you guys earlier today, so thank you guys for joining again. We are covering the case of the state of Colorado versus Barry Morphew in the now second murder trial. Well, we never got the trial. Second murder charge of Barry Morphew in the case of his wife, Suzanne Morphew. So this is a case that I have followed since she was reported missing back on Mother's Day in 2020. So it's a long time coming. He's been arrested. He's been released. There's a whole lot of twists and turns, and of course he maintains his innocence. They had 2 children together, and the girls have stood by their dad. So I was actually just going to do like a little conversation about like some history of the case, but there seems to be quite a bit that either remember the case a little from when it happened or don't know the case at all. So I actually had created a documentary about almost 2 years ago now on this case. So I figure we'll just play that, and it's just all the background of the situation. Then we'll go over when they finally found her remains, and then now we have a new indictment that we will discuss. So let me say hi to you guys, and we are going to get started. Thank you guys for being here. Like I said, this is essentially like episode 1 of this week, where I'm going to be covering cases that had updates while I was on vacation. So some of this is repetitive information. If you guys keep up with the case that we cover that day, like today we're going to be doing Barry Morphew. Tomorrow we're going to be doing Idaho. One day we'll be doing Karen Reed, so on and so forth. So some of it might be a little bit repetitive because it's not necessarily new information. It's just new since I was gone for 3 weeks. So let me say hi to you guys, and we will get started. Hi, Grilled Cheese. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Jen. Hi, Marshall. Hi, Sherry. Susie Q. So happy you are back. My 2 cents. Make sure watermark is nice and faint. You're not lying about it. It isn't the first fundraiser, so a new circumstance. I that's fair. I get that. I truly detest Barry. He is diabolical. Yeah, he is extremely manipulative human being. Hi, Bushi. What's up, Bree? Hi, Murderino. Karen Reed Freed. Hey, Shaz. Shbugs, we're back. We're back, baby. Hi, Hillary. Hi, Indiana girl. Who just never followed this case, so feel free to start from the beginning. You got it. Hey, Rochelle. I feel like you were a member, so welcome back or welcome to the membership either way. I do have some fun things that I have been storing in for some members only lives. Am I in a fucking dream? Sleuthy, you missed the live earlier today. She's like, am I in a dream? Do I know this place? This is like a faint memory. A faint memory. I see you, Mama. Feels like a hallucination. She was from Indiana. They are from Indiana, and they had moved to Colorado. So let me share my screen with you guys. And since this is the beginning of our live together is obviously going to be the pre-recorded part, we can stop, and if you guys have questions, and answer them. So there'll be me, and then there'll be another me. 16 months? What? Yeah, I had just heard they were from here recently. I had not remembered that. Yes. So let me get this bad boy going. Oh, Sherry, I don't care. People spell it all kinds of ways. Only somebody spells it C-U-N-T. So, you know. As long as you didn't misspell it that bad, I think we're good. Hi, somebody. What case I've actually, what only case I've ever actually followed since day one is Delphi. I've only lived in Colorado for a year. Are people just cray here? I don't know. Colorado can be kind of crazy. So the channel that I used to co-host with, the original name of that channel was actually True Crime in Colorado, because there was so much craziness in Colorado. But then they changed it to Unmasked. So it's just kind of funny because that Colorado is kind of crazy. And so this is a case that I did follow when I was on the other channel, which has been my goal of since I started this channel, was to kind of make like mini documentaries on all the cases that I followed pretty closely on that channel, and then just make a documentary so I have all the the history and all the research that I had done over there, at least in one spot. So then when things continue to pop off, such as this case, we have all the backstory, so it works. Hi, Ems. Ohio. Ohio chick. Ohio. Doesn't Colorado have a case against a crime lab employee too? So currently right now in Colorado, do you guys remember the dentist, James Craig? He poisoned his wife with eye drops so that he could be with his mistress. Oh, Ems, that's so sweet. I missed you too. Hey, the Royal We. Hey, Delana. Hey, Brian. Do you guys remember? Yeah. So his trial is actually just started. They were doing jury selection like on Thursday of last week. I can't find it being streamed anywhere, but yeah, Missy Woods is the woman from the crime lab that allegedly manipulated DNA results. Yep, that's another one. I mean, there's just so much. Colorado does have a lot. People say it's California. I say Florida and Colorado. They take the cake. And then we do have a lot in Idaho, though. Don't get him started. Lawyer Lee is following it too. Following which one? Suzanne Morphew. So like I said, so this is a case that I followed since when she was reported missing. And this is how I ended up being so close with Jules, which used to be Jules of Thought and now is allegedly innocent. She went to the hearings and was just super kind and oh God, thank God these lives. Hi, Mika's headphones. I'm finally done with calling home health providers. That's good. I missed you guys. Okay, so this is my documentary on the Suzanne Morphew case. That's what we're going to start with, but we can pause it if you guys have questions. But I figured instead of me fumbling through the history, because there's a lot, this will give us the beginning. This was made prior to Suzanne Morphew's remains being found. If anybody watched my Delphi coverage from when the Franks memo went out, I was actually scheduled to do, I think, like part 4 of the Franks memo, and Suzanne Morphew's remains were found. So I ended up switching it very quickly over to a Suzanne Morphew live. No bond. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Criminal. That's the first thing I need to know is, can you hear it? I need to know, can you hear it? Perfect. Okay. Today we're going to be talking about the case of missing mom, Suzanne Morphew from Salida, Colorado. She went missing on Mother's Day, May 10th of 2020, and as of the date of this video, she still has not been found, nor has anyone been held accountable for her disappearance. Here we go. Suzanne and Barry Morphew grew up in the same hometown of Alexandria, Indiana, and they met in high school. Suzanne was said to be very popular and Barry very well liked and a star baseball player. The couple began dating after Barry graduated high school. They got married in 1994, and Barry had started his landscaping business. And Suzanne was a school teacher who ultimately ended up leaving her job so she could be a stay-at-home mom for her and Barry's 2 daughters. In approximately 2018, they decided it was time for a change and decided to head west and moved to Colorado. So in the early morning hours of Sunday, May 10th, 2020, also Mother's Day, Barry Morphew, who was a landscaping contractor, got out of bed at approximately 4:30 in the morning, got ready, headed to Broomfield, a couple hours away from where their home was located in Salida, Colorado, to prepare for a job that was apparently starting on Monday. And according to Barry, when he left for Broomfield, his wife, Suzanne Morphew, was asleep in their bed. Throughout the day, as it was Mother's Day, Barry and their two daughters were trying to get a hold of Suzanne to wish her happy Mother's Day and just in general make sure she was doing okay and just check in. Nobody could get a hold of Suzanne, and that began to concern a lot of people. Suzanne was 49 years old and by all means a very healthy and fit woman, but she had survived 2 battles with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma over the years, and the family was concerned that something could be wrong. So Barry told his daughters to contact the neighbors and have them go to the house to see if they could check on Suzanne and find anything. One of the neighbors does go over and sees that Suzanne's vehicle is still inside of the garage. Suzanne had recently taken up a great interest in mountain biking, and one of the bikes was missing. They knew that she didn't travel far from her home without a vehicle or without some assistance. And the area where the home is located in Salida, it's pretty rough terrain. So the neighbor and her husband end up calling law enforcement to get some help. They began to search the roads and on the sides of the roads just to see if they could find anything, any clue of where Suzanne had gone.
Suzanne? Suzanne?
Ultimately, they do end up finding her bike down the side of a hill in a ravine. It's kind of mangled, but there's still no sign of Suzanne. When they show up at the house, one of the daughter's boyfriends is there trying to find any clues to help find his girlfriend's mom. Because he had received a text from his girlfriend stating, "I'm just so sad. My sister and I texted mom for Mother's Day, and she still hasn't answered. And I'm scared her and dad probably got in a big fight." A few things that the daughter's boyfriend mentions become quickly relevant to the officers that are searching for Suzanne.
Yep, so the 2 daughters are gone right now at the moment. The dad is in Denver for a job, and they text her because of Mother's Day, and they haven't heard. The text never went through, like it never delivered since this morning. And she's a big mountain biker. She normally takes her car, and her bike's normally in the back of that. It's gone.
Was this open when you came here?
The neighbor was here that opened it, and then she shut it, and she went back to her house. Her house is right over there.
Okay.
And then I came back and I opened it to come in the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you looked in the house?
I have. Yep.
All right. You looked through everything?
Yes.
You haven't found her?
No.
Okay. All right. What time did you get here?
6 o'clock, and then I went all the way up Frusis. She's road up there, and I just drove the main road, couldn't find her, and then there's a couple spots that I could check, like trails and stuff, but I wanted to come back here to just like check back in and stuff.
Okay. Has she ever gone up 225?
Colorado Trail right there?
Like, you know, the big hill once you come off the highway?
Well, she hasn't, and I haven't checked there yet because that climb at the beginning is really hard.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be out of characteristic for her to do that, but I mean, someone needs to go there, I think.
Why would you say this? Like unfair?
Well, because it's kind of a crazy, climb to get up there. It's like not really.
Okay, so at the time, their daughters, one was in college in Colorado, which is one of the reasons they actually chose Colorado as well, and the other one was in high school still, but essentially living with her boyfriend and her boyfriend's family. I mean, she stayed there a lot, and Suzanne was okay with it. So this is that daughter's boyfriend. So both the girls are camping over Mother's Day weekend, and Barry is in Broomfield. He says Denver, but he's in Broomfield for this job that isn't even starting until Monday. So the girlfriend or the daughter called her boyfriend and said, "Hey, can you go and see if you can check on my mom?" So this is the younger daughter who was in high school at the time in 2020. This is her boyfriend. So he's at the house when the cops show up because the neighbors have called the cops.
Rideable, you gotta push your bike before you can start riding.
All right.
Yeah.
This officer finds that interesting and radios in to his fellow officers saying that the boyfriend does not think that Suzanne would be riding up that trail.
This is one of the daughter's boyfriend. He's saying it'd be out of ordinary for her to travel up that way. When we found the bike.
And the young man soon realizes the importance of the information he just gave when his father shows up to the house and states they just found Suzanne's bike on the road that he just told officers was out of character for Suzanne to take.
You guys ever bike though?
Yeah.
So do you guys hear that? So they're asking if she would have been biking on this specific trail, and he says no, like it's too hard a terrain for her to bike. She would not be biking there. And then his dad, so this is his dad and sister that show up and say like, hey, they just found her bike and it happens to be on that exact trail that he was just saying there's no way she would do. ICT girl.
But not her.
Not her.
Okay. Where'd you find her bike?
Off of that road that I was asking you about.
Oh,
How you said it was
in
on
Chavano.
Just
As the officer continued to ask questions, one answer in particular was definitely of interest.
Oh, this is a weird question, but do Barry and Suzanne get along pretty well?
You can answer honestly.
You know, I think they've had some problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
He didn't want to give too much info, and his dad's like, no, like he's looking at his dad like, can you help me out here? Like, what do I say? And the dad's like, no, you're going to tell the truth. This lady's missing. You're going to tell him anything you know. Because he's like, I don't know what to say here.
In the past,
Like, just normal.
normal husband and wife type deal. I
Oh,
would
they
say.
like talk about separating or anything
They
like
have, yeah.
that? Okay.
I would, yeah.
And you know this through
Through
Macy.
yeah, I'm very
Macy.
close with her.
Barry drives back down from Broomfield and meets with the officers near the scene of where Suzanne's bike was found. He, on the other hand, has a very different story about why Suzanne would have been mountain biking on that road.
Hey, Barry, besides, I know the bike was here, but what are some of the paths that, or like the trails, like cases?
She rides this road. She rides up to the top, and then she goes up to Foose's.
Okay,
If there's no snow, she'll go up high to Foose's. She went down this one a couple of times.
down this one here too?
Yeah.
Okay. So double check boosters over there too, because I think
Well,
was
see,
it Miles?
if
I think Miles. Yeah, I know. We just want to double check everything.
So according to Barry, it was very common that Suzanne would be biking on these trails up this really steep incline that the daughter's boyfriend said she would have had to have walked her bike up. Who knows? But the next interesting thing is when the officers begin to speak with each other and realize that Barry is saying the last time he saw Suzanne was when he left that morning. And as the officers have tried to locate Suzanne's cell phone, it hasn't pinged since the same time.
What's the thing about 4 o'clock in the morning? Was activity on the phone?
5 o'clock. Oh yeah, so we pinged the phone and we said the last activity was at 4 in the morning.
Up here?
It's off of the Ponzi Tavern. So there's not any specific limit. Right?
The search efforts would continue with drones and scent tracking dogs, and within a couple of days, Suzanne's family put out a reward for $200,000 for her safe return. The store manager at the Pancha Market said that she had talked to Barry on May 12th, and he had come in the store, took a receipt, and on the back just wrote down a description of what Suzanne was wearing or what he thought she might have been wearing the day she went missing. It was an odd encounter, the manager recalls, because he didn't describe Suzanne at all. Didn't talk about the color of her hair, didn't talk about the color of her eyes, how tall she was, or anything. By May 13th, her bike helmet was found not far from her house, but still no Suzanne. On May 17th, the Pueblo County Sheriff's Office dive rescue team started to search the water sites. And Chaffee County Sheriff's Office was asking all residents to preserve any and all video footage between the dates of May 8th and May 12th in hopes of seeing if that would give them a clue. Also on May 17th, Barry made a plea to the public for his wife's safe return.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you. We miss you. Your girls need you. No questions asked. However much they want, I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. I want you back. So,
Okay, so how many people here have seen Harry and the Hendersons? I know I'm in the right age group for this because he reminds me of Harry. He always has. I look at his face and he reminds me of Harry from Harry and the Hendersons. So I just want you guys to see that. Yes, CO Mama. Yeah, this was his plea. Oh, Suzanne, just come back. Just come back. Anything you want, we'll do it. Just come back. This is a pre-recorded little video that his PR team puts out for him right when she's missing. You can see it? Yeah, Harry. On May 22nd, investigators with the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the FBI all were conducting a search at a residential property on the east side of Salida, at a property that had been a previous work site of Barry's. And unfortunately, nothing found was confirmed to be connected to the disappearance of Suzanne. As the world continued to search for Suzanne Morphew, her husband basically stayed silent until August, when he did an interview with a reporter named Lauren Scharf. And during that interview, he talked about what he thought actually happened to his wife and blamed the police for screwing up the investigation. He suggested that Suzanne was possibly attacked by a wild animal, a mountain lion, specifically. He also theorized that maybe she had run into somebody who was in the midst of a bad deed and she got caught in the middle of it. He states that he and his wife have been in love since 1988 and that she is the love of his life. He states that he promised his and Suzanne's daughters that he would never give up searching. He fears that what is out there is not true because people don't actually know what happened, but they're going to think whatever they're going to think. By the end of September, Suzanne's brother, Andrew Mormon, had put together a volunteer search team to go to Salida and the surrounding areas to search for any clues on where his missing sister could possibly be. The search that Andrew put together included hundreds of volunteers, and during the time that they were searching, they did come across something they deemed to be very significant. And Andrew ended up going on the Dr. Phil show to discuss this.
Well, we were fortunate enough to have search dogs in from Missouri and another set from New Mexico yesterday. And we made a little discovery. The dogs hit in a particular area, which we turned over to the FBI now.
I hate to ask this, but are these scent and hunting dogs? Are these cadaver dogs? What type of training do these dogs have?
A cadaver.
What kind of area did they hit on?
Well, one of them's a riverfront. Another one is a tree planting. And the third one is an addition being put in, and the entrance area with blocks.
Unfortunately for Andrew and the rest of Suzanne's family and friends, the alerts by the cadaver dogs were never confirmed to have anything to do with the disappearance of Suzanne. By October, a private dive team came in and searched some of the local waterways and mine shafts, which unfortunately also did not result in finding Suzanne. On May 5th of 2021, almost exactly a year after Suzanne had gone missing, Chaffee County District Attorney Linda Stanley made the decision to have Barry Morphew arrested in the disappearance of his wife, Suzanne Morphew. Barry was charged with first-degree murder, tampering with a deceased human body, tampering with physical evidence, and possession of a dangerous weapon, as well as an attempt to influence a public servant.
My name is Linda Stanley. I'm the District Attorney for the 11th Judicial District, which includes Fremont County, Custer, and Chaffee counties total. I wanted to say that thanks for being here for everybody, and there's a couple of things I'd like to address. about this case. First, the investigation is still ongoing. Suzanne, her body has not been found, and we're still looking into that. The investigation is ongoing. Second, Barry Morphew is presumed innocent until proven guilty. That's important to remember. Lastly, I wanted to say that today is a good day. And today is a good day for Suzanne. As far as I'm concerned, today is all about Suzanne.
In August of 2021, the public would begin to learn more details of what the state of Colorado had as evidence against Barry Morphew during his preliminary hearing, also known as a proof evident presumption great hearing. And the district attorney's office really wasted no time in trying to lay out everything they had against Barry, while at the same time Barry's attorneys were trying to flip the script and push the narrative that Suzanne was essentially a gone girl scenario. Since Suzanne had been missing, there had been a lot of rumors that Barry had been having multiple affairs from the time they lived in Indiana to the move out to Colorado. Some even speculating that the move to Colorado was an attempt to save their marriage from Barry's infidelities. Well, during the first day of the preliminary hearing, the public actually learned that Suzanne was having an affair. This was quite shocking. She had been secretly messaging and seeing a gentleman named Jeff Libler that she knew from high school that she had reconnected with via Facebook approximately 2 years earlier, and was still talking to him up until the day before she was reported missing. So the defense was really pushing that she decided to leave and just disappeared. Well, the prosecution, on the other hand, was laying out a very different narrative of what they believe happened to Suzanne and how Barry was responsible for her untimely demise. The prosecution discussed how Barry and Suzanne's marriage was riddled with accusations of infidelity, as well as financial struggles from the move to Colorado while they still owned a home in Indiana and having to pay both mortgages. Just the overall control issues that they believed that Barry exhibited based on text messages that Suzanne had sent to her friends and family. The prosecution brought out text messages to Suzanne's best friend, Sheila, from all the way back in November of 2018. And Suzanne is sharing with Sheila the struggles that she's having with Barry, who she refers to as B, and just talking about the fact that he is noticing a change in her and that she's becoming more independent and not checking in on him as often. And she continues to share details with Sheila about the relationship and where her mind is in regards to the marriage and her children. And she confides in Sheila that she thinks that Barry is talking to their older daughter and sharing too much of their relationship information with her. And she can tell by the way that the older daughter approaches her about her own marriage. She also discusses that her youngest daughter can tell that there's definitely issues going on, and that she fears that it's going to cause damage to her own relationship with her daughters because of Barry being as manipulative as he is with them. She thinks that Barry just wants her to be a puppet and wants her to do the things that he wants her to do when he wants her to do them. She discusses that she does believe that Barry is living some form of secret life, and she's beginning to become more afraid for her own safety, and she fears that when the girls are gone is when she's in the most danger. She believes that when the youngest daughter does leave for college, that she won't be able to stay there because she won't feel safe any longer. She shares that Barry uses money and talks about the house and the Range Rovers and all the things that he does to provide for her, and like, how could she not appreciate him? She feels like it's a constant battle between her and Barry to just have a healthy marriage. She says that they've discussed separating, but it's more in innuendos versus actually coming out and saying it. She calls him Jekyll and Hyde, that she just doesn't know what she's going to get when he walks in the front door. She talks about that everything just kind of changes with the wind. He thinks it's great as long as he's getting what he wants. As time goes on, you can tell that there are more conversations about divorce and separation and what that would look like for both her, Barry, and their daughters. She wants it to be as peaceful as possible. She doesn't want to fight. On May 9th, 2020, the day before Suzanne was reported missing, she and Sheila were messaging just So May 10th of 2020 was actually Mother's Day. That's the day that she's reported missing, and most like mainstream media will say, you know, the mom who went missing on Red W. Hi. That like she went missing. She went on a bike ride and was never seen again. So I think I say it in this presentation, but I don't really remember. There is no bike ride. Like that's just a ruse. Like that's what he set up. There's no bike ride, in my opinion. This is all my opinion and allegedly and all the things that you have to say whatever. There's no bike ride. She goes missing on May 9th. May 9th is the last time that anybody has seen her, talked to her, hears from her. May 9th is when I believe she actually died. So I think she was killed on Saturday, and then he leaves on Sunday to set up the whole thing. So you'll see that as I keep going through the presentation, and there's a lot of info in here. So this is perfect. And you guys in chat, please ask questions, because that's what I want you to be able to do. Because one, either people don't know about the case, and everybody should, because this guy is a predator. He is the mountain lion that he thinks got to Suzanne. But the fact that he has been arrested again, this case will, you know, obviously it takes some time to go through the justice system and stuff, but you're going to hear a ton about it. So it's a great opportunity to learn the background of the case without all the having to do all the research into all the things. So please, if you have questions, ask them. Some people just may remember the case, but don't remember all the details. So like I said, that's what we're here for. That's why I'm playing this. So ask away. You know, I tried in this presentation has everything up to literally the day that I made the presentation. And like I said, after that, we'll go into the other things. So you're going to know all the things going into the whole thing prior. The kid Miles and his dad were more of a help than Barry, and Barry's video was creepy. Yes. Hi, Thomas. Hi, OGBG. So yeah, hi, don't dox me. So absolutely, like if you have questions, feel free to ask them, even if they're just refresher questions. I'll do my best to answer them. Either if it's a good point in the video to stop it, or I can just type it in chat. So, but this is a case that I'm telling you guys you're going to want to know. This is a case you're going to want to know. It's just something that was, if you didn't get really into, you know, true crime or true crime on social media until after this time frame, this was a very big case, and the fact that it is back up will make it a very big case again. It's a very, I mean, it's huge. We just don't get to see all of it yet. So that's where we're at. Psycho Bam Bam. Okay, here we go. Discussing general things such as an upcoming wedding and Sheila's own mother's health. Sheila would later say that was the last conversation she ever had with Suzanne. The prosecution goes on to show a message that Suzanne had sent to her sister on Friday, May 8th, talking to her about the relationship issues and stating that it's just been really hard and he's so abusive emotionally and physically. Suzanne just tells her sister that she's upset with herself for allowing it for so long. Then the prosecution shows messages between Suzanne and Barry, some which had been deleted from Barry's phone, where Suzanne's accusing him of having a mistress and still trying to manipulate her. And just days before Suzanne went missing, she texts Barry, "I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years." She says she just wants to figure the whole thing out civilly and move on. These messages all lead investigators to start looking at a different timeline of when Suzanne actually disappeared. And some of the most important messages were to the man she was having an affair with, Jeff Libler. And Suzanne and Jeff had originally started talking on Facebook Messenger, but since they were both married, they opted to use other apps to communicate. And at one point had even taken a break from communication altogether. Suzanne had reached back out to Jeff on LinkedIn when she wanted to reconnect, and she was just sharing with him how rough the marriage was and how much she missed him, and she knew that he was the one that she was supposed to be with, that he was her love. And on Saturday, May 9th of 2020, the day before Suzanne was reported missing, one of the last messages she ever sent from her phone was to Jeff at approximately 2 p.m. in the afternoon. It was a selfie of her sunbathing in her backyard, letting him know that she was available to chat on WhatsApp and letting him know how deeply in love with him she was. Next, the prosecutors discussed items that they found in the Morphew home, as well as the home itself, which they had now deemed a crime scene. During the search of the house, the investigators had found this spy pen in a walk-in closet in Suzanne's master bedroom. They learned that Suzanne had gotten the pen, which was voice activated and recorded conversations in hopes of catching her husband Barry having an affair. Instead, she actually so the spy pen comes out when it's presented at this hearing. We're like, holy crap! Like he had a spy pen, like he's spying on her, and then come find out, no, she's spying on him. She's got this set up to try to catch him cheating on her. So a little backstory is he was arrested and charged with all the things to do with her disappearance. Oh my God, the spy pen! I know, right? All the things to do with her disappearance. Before they found her remains. The DA, Linda Stanley, I could do a whole nother live on Linda Stanley, did some unethical things that she should not have done as the DA, specifically around Barry Morphew's case, like going on YouTube channels and discussing things. Also not turning over specific evidence, so on and so forth. It was just a nightmare. They barely had enough to hang on to when she took over as DA and arrested him, and then she just destroyed any remnants they had. So the state ended up having to drop the charges, but with the ability to recharge him later. She is no longer the district attorney. She got removed and had all kinds of issues of her own. And then he decided, and you're going to hear that towards the end of this live. You'll get all this info, but just so that you guys kind of know. So he was released back in 2022, I believe, 2022. Yes. And it never went to trial. So they had the preliminary hearings and all the things, but it never went to trial. So the very first hearings that we got, we could watch them with the judge under the condition that they were not recorded or streamed. And there was a YouTuber who I think is still around, who decided to stream it. And the court got wind of it. And then there was the accusations of somebody hacking into like the Zoom, like the court feed. So the court, after all of that, decided no cameras, no nothing. And so there was no more cameras in the courtroom. And it's a tiny little courtroom. So you had to either go there or you had to just wait for the reporters to come out. There was a reporter at the time named Lauren Scharf, who I mentioned in this, who did a phenomenal job covering this case. Sadly, she's no longer a reporter, but if anything does pop off with this, she typically will go live on her YouTube channel or on Twitter and say like whatever she has to say. So she did a lot of background, looking into the situation, so on and so forth. So I followed her a lot. And then also when I was mentioning at the beginning of this live, Jules of Thought, who's now allegedly innocent on YouTube, she would go to the hearings. And then the channel owner of the channel that I was on at that time, she would also try to go to the hearings. So we were getting a lot of that info on the back end. That was the only way to get it. And so just a heads up, now that he was released, he filed a $15 million lawsuit against everybody and anybody that he felt wrongly charged him. And the reason we are live with this now is because he was just indicted by the grand jury, which they say, you can indict a ham sandwich, but we'll see now. And he is back in court. He's back arrested. He was extradited from Arizona back to Colorado, and that's where we're at. So now we're going to get a trial that we never actually got before. So that's where we're at. So this video that I made that I'm showing you guys now is before she was found. After this is done playing, we're going to talk about when she was found, and then we're going to go into everything that's happening currently 2025 status. Okay, so like it's I'm trying to do it in parts for anybody who doesn't know the case, because if you follow my channel, you're gonna want to follow this case because it's a case I will absolutely follow. And not to mention it'll be a big story. I mean, not Coburger big, but it's a big story. So like I'll go through all the sections too. So yeah, the spy pen. So they find this spy pen that she had actually ordered and was holding on to And it ends up catching herself talking to her boyfriend. Yeah, the size of the county he was charged in was 16,000 in 2020. I just ordered the transcript in a day trial, just testimony, no jury selection, just witness testimony. So really about 5 days from court reporter to transcribe and put it in the transcript. $8,500. Jeez. So there we go. Recorded conversations between her and Barry where they were arguing about finances and conversations with Jeff Libler. This is how law enforcement was actually able to identify that she was having an affair and who the person was that she was having the affair with. Inside the Morphew's dryer, investigators had found a clear plastic cap that was from a syringe that's used to load a tranquilizer dart, which they believe that Barry used a tranquilizer gun with the dart injected with chemical to shoot Suzanne to incapacitate her. Barry told the investigator, "This will be very important. This is important information. So just keep it in the forefront." Investigators, he had no idea how the cap had gotten into his dryer, but he did say that he was an experienced tranquilizer gun shooter because he was an avid hunter and used load darts with paralyzing chemicals to illegally sedate deer and remove their antlers to sell. When investigators were searching the Morphew home and they were in the master bedroom, they found an unspent .22 round on the floor. Barry says he has no idea how that got there. And then they noticed a large crack in the master bedroom door frame. When they asked Barry what happened, he said he had no idea. When they contacted the prior owners of the home, they stated that there was no crack in that door frame when they sold the house to the Morphews. This led investigators to believe that once Barry had shot Suzanne with the tranquilizer gun, that she had gone to the master bedroom and locked herself in, and he had broken in the door, busting that door frame to get to her. As with most of Barry's stories, they continued to evolve as investigators were approaching him with new evidence that they had found, like the data from his truck, as well as the data from his cell phone. If you recall earlier in the video, I talked about that Saturday, May 9th, Barry had gone to work on the other side of Salida with one of his employees named Morgan. And Morgan mentioned that Barry had been acting very weird. At 9:50 a.m. on Saturday, Barry texts Suzanne like, "Hey, you want to go on a hike?" Suzanne responds with "Where?" But Barry's at work and does not respond back. So at 10:36 a.m., Suzanne ends up texting Barry again, saying, "Do you want to meet up to hike?" Approximately 10 minutes later, Barry responds with, "No, I'm coming home," and Suzanne asks him to pick up stuff for the hot tub. And Morgan later said that Barry did end up leaving work that day around 11 a.m., even though she was under the impression they were going to be at this work site all day. And this work site is the same work site that law enforcement had gone and dug up. So Barry arrives home at about 11:45 a.m. And about 5 minutes later, his phone is pinging down by the river. So when investigators ask him about why his phone would be down by the river, he says that he was actually searching for a turkey that one of his daughters had shot some time ago. At 1:38 p.m., Barry ends up leaving the house again, and this is when Suzanne sends the text to Jeff Libler, letting him know that she's alone again. At 2 p.m., Barry was replacing a blade on what is known as a bobcat. It's a piece of machinery that he used in his landscaping business. This is actually the only thing that Barry admits that he was untruthful about to investigators, because he states that he just couldn't remember the time that he was actually working on a quote-unquote mechanical thing that had to do with the bobcat, and that he had just been informed that his wife was missing, so he wasn't thinking clearly about what was happening. But he never specifically states that he was having his blade replaced. While Barry is gone getting the bobcat blade replaced is when Suzanne sends the last known messages from her phone, when she tells Jeff that she's going to be available on the WhatsApp and sends him a selfie. Barry arrives home at approximately 2:44 p.m. and his phone seems to be running around the house. When asked about this by Special Agent Johnny Grusing, his response was that he shoots chipmunks, and he shot approximately 85 of them. And it should be noted that Barry never brought up the fact that he had run around shooting chipmunks or going to check for a decomposing Turkey when reviewing the timeline of the few days leading up to Suzanne being reported missing, until months later when interviewed for the umpteenth time. Barry's attorneys argued that the phone pinging on different towers outside of the house and bouncing back and forth, making it seem like it was running around, could have very well just been the way the cell phone was pinging off the towers. It did not mean that Barry was actually running around. And when Agent Grusing was asked that on the stand during the preliminary hearing, his response was, well, that's why we asked him. And he said he was chasing chipmunks. So how many people here watched the Gannon Stout case? Also out of Colorado. So Agent Grusing was the one who interviewed Letitia Stout. If you guys did watch that, like he was the main contributor to interviewing Letitia Stout and figuring out what happened to Gannon. The reason he's important here, and hopefully I bring it up in this. I haven't watched this for a very long time, so like some of this I'm like, yeah, that's right. He is the one who told the DA, Linda Stanley, to wait on the charges because he felt like they would be able to find more evidence to convict him. And she didn't listen to him. Another issue that they had was that, hold on, let me think. Hi, lawyer's daughter. I started looking at you guys in chat, and that's why I can't look at you guys in chat, and then I lose track of what I'm doing. Hi, Hospice Jess. Another issue that they had was that one of the members of like the cast team testifies, and the judge decides to not allow them to have expert testimony. So they can't be deemed experts. They can only be deemed, and I think Johnny Grusing was one of them, that they can only testify just as lay witnesses. They will not be deemed experts in the eyes of the jury. And so that also threw out, a lot of what Linda Stanley had worked to do. So I think that crazy lady was in my local Facebook page. Didn't need to watch it. It was your neighborhood. Yeah, so he was shooting chipmunks with his tranquilizer gun. But he doesn't tell anybody that until after they're like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing at your house? Why is your phone pinging all over? And why are we finding tranquilizer stuff in your dryer? Then he just continues to add on to his story about what he's doing. So, she's on the phone when he supposedly gets home. You're looking at that timing. Like she's laying out in her backyard, sends the selfie to her boyfriend, and then, he essentially comes home to go on this hike that he wanted to go on. And he doesn't go on a hike. He goes out and looks for some dead turkey that he says his daughter killed days prior. Yeah. So where's the hike? Okay, so here we go. So here's the timeline. 2:47 p.m. Barry puts his phone into airplane mode, which it would stay there in airplane mode. Barry puts a few days leading up to Suzanne being reported missing, until months later when interviewed for the umpteenth time. Barry's attorneys argued that the phone pinging on different towers outside of the house and bouncing back and forth, making it seem like it was running around, could have very well just been the way the cell phone was pinging off the towers. It did not mean that Barry was actually running around. And when Agent Grusing was asked that on the stand during the preliminary hearing, his response was, well, that's why we asked him. And he said he was chasing chipmunks. At 2:47 p.m., Barry puts his phone into airplane mode, which it would stay there in airplane mode until about 10 o'clock that night. During this time, Suzanne is actually getting texts and responses from people such as Jeff Libler, and she is not responding back to them. At 4:44 p.m., Barry's truck doors open and close. And I was trying to confirm if this is the time that he actually goes to the store to buy the supplies for the hot tub. I could not verify that. If you happen to know, please leave a comment and let me know where I can find if that is the time that he goes. So according to Barry's initial stories, he stated that he had gone home and spent the day with Suzanne, and they had steak dinner and were intimate that night, and that they went to bed about 8 p.m. But his truck data actually shows that he was opening and closing the doors to his truck throughout the evening. Specifically at 9:24 p.m., he starts his truck and actually backs it up in the driveway closer to the house. And Suzanne's phone actually has some interesting activity throughout the evening and into the early hours of May 10th of 2020, where she had sent a handful of friend requests to men back in Indiana on Facebook. And then there was some incoming and outgoing calls in the middle of the night. When Agent Grusing was asked about these calls when he was on the stand, he said that Verizon noted that Suzanne's last phone activity was Saturday, May 9th in the afternoon, and they did not have these calls from the middle of the night. From 3:25 a.m. until 3:49 a.m., Barry's truck doors are opened and closed repeatedly. At 4:23 a.m., it's the last known ping from Suzanne's phone off of a Poncha Springs tower. And at 4:31 a.m., Barry turns his phone back to airplane mode. And according to Barry's initial statements, he says that he woke up at 4:30 in the morning. He was pulling out of his driveway by 5 a.m. Suzanne was asleep in her bed, and he was headed to Broomfield to prepare for this job starting on Monday. His phone is actually pinging near the location of where the bike was found. This on its face is not actually alarming because the way that he would have to leave his residence is through these swirling roads that actually go right by where the bike was found. And then he would end up heading east on US 50. But Barry heads west, which is cause for questioning because west of where the bike was found is where Suzanne's helmet was later located. So to adjust for this inconsistency in Barry's story, he has to make sure that his story evolves to match what the evidence is showing. And he decides to tell law enforcement that he actually saw a bull elk and decided to follow it west on US 50, which would clearly take him out of the way of the trip that he was intending to take. Then at 5:57 a.m., Barry's phone is now receiving signal again as he's driving towards Broomfield. He texts his mom, "Happy Mother's Day." And then he texts Suzanne, "Hey, you up? Happy Mother's Day. I love you." At 8:10 a.m., things start to get very interesting. Barry has arrived in Broomfield, but makes a stop at an RTD bus stop where he opens and closes his doors and remains there. Okay, so just for transparency purposes, now we're on the 10th. So he's now left the house, and he says that Suzanne was asleep in the bed, and that he goes to Broomfield because he needs to get up there and get ready for this job that's starting early Monday, and he's got to be prepared. Angel says, "Are Barry's daughters still defending him?" At his arraignment, when he was just extradited back to Colorado, I can't say both daughters were there. I'd have to look in to see like the reporters that were in the courtroom. But when I watched it, one daughter 100% was there. I don't know if both were. So I don't want to say both, but I know 100% one daughter was there. So I would say yes. But if you go back to when we were talking about her text messages from 2019 to her friend Sheila, she's telling her friend that she thinks that Barry is manipulating the older daughter into believing that that he's this great guy and that her mom is wackadoodle basically. And that it's ruining her relationship with her daughters. The younger daughter is a different situation in my mind, because Macy, the one that had the boyfriend that was at the house, she was questioning the situation between her parents and did not find it very healthy, and was staying a lot at her boyfriend's house because of the relationship of her parents. But as you'll see as this continues to go, there is she doesn't have anybody else left. So I don't know if she just ends up believing him or just goes, "My sister and my dad is my family. I don't have my mom." Maybe she's holding out hope that maybe her mom did just leave because now they do find out that she was having this affair. I don't know. I've never spoke to these people. I don't know what they're internally thinking. It is the older daughter, in my opinion, has overly protected and supported her father. The younger daughter, I think, lives on a cusp, and that's what I'll say until we get more information. Now, hi, Andy Kopsa. Hi, low light. So now we're on the 10th. He had his phone in airplane mode. And I guess I didn't say it in this, but he's talking about the fact that he went west and to follow this bull elk. But you remember this is in May, so I don't know how many of you guys are hunters or whatnot. Hi, Ariel. But bull elks don't typically have their antlers in May. So he does this because he sells antlers illegally. And if you looked at the photos from when he was packing his shit to come out to Colorado, there was a ton of freaking antlers. But they don't typically have their antlers in May, and they're not typically with the herd of females. So it was not the greatest cover story. But again, this is Barry Morphew. So now we're going to go into all the things he does that make no sense while he's in Broomfield. On May 10th. For at least 2 minutes while he is throwing items away. This becomes known as trash run number 1. At 8:14 a.m., Barry arrived at the Holiday Inn Express in Broomfield, Colorado. He parked on the south side, which was near a dumpster. This would be identified as trash run number 2. At 8:41 a.m., he texted Suzanne, "I've made it to Broomfield." At 8:46, you can see Barry entering his room carrying 2 white trash bags, a khaki backpack, hiking boots, a teal-colored piece of clothing, and a darker black piece of clothing. It should be noted that Barry is currently wearing jeans, boots, and a long-sleeve shirt. I also want to mention that all of the timestamps on the surveillance footage from the hotel is 1 hour off. So just add an hour to get the exact time of day that Barry was seen on camera. At 10:06 a.m., Barry is seen leaving his hotel room carrying a long sleeve shirt, 2 white bags, and hiking boots. Note that he is wearing jeans, boots, and now a short sleeve dark shirt. From 10:19 a.m. to 10:41 a.m., Barry drives up and around his work site, but he doesn't stop. He ends up going to McDonald's in Broomfield, where he's seen on camera putting trash into 2 separate trash cans, and he's seen shoving the trash down with both of his hands. This is identified as trash run number 3. And trash run number 4 takes place immediately after. From 10:47 a.m. to 11:18 a.m., Barry is seen at the men's warehouse in Broomfield. His truck doors are opening and closing for approximately 40 minutes. The driver and passenger doors were opened multiple times. At 11:23 a.m., Barry returns to his hotel, and at 11:36, he's seen in the lobby carrying a black binder full of a bunch of messy papers. At 11:56 a.m., Barry leaves the hotel again. Barry is now wearing jeans, boots, and a light-colored or white t-shirt. And from 11:57 to about 12:25, he's at his work site, where he said in his original statement that he spent most of the day. In his evolved statement, he actually claims that he was just there to assess the wall and see what needed to be done. He removed some bricks, and then he returned to his hotel. And another piece of information that's important to note here is that the city of Broomfield actually does not allow any type of construction work like this to be done on Sundays or holidays, which law enforcement would later say Barry was well aware of. And then what would be known as trash run number 5, and the last trash run that law enforcement talks about. Although many speculate there were quite a few other trash drops done throughout the city. But trash run number 5 happens around 12:36 when Barry returns to the hotel. He's seen on surveillance taking items out of his truck, such as a black container, a large white trash bag, and articles of clothing. He actually sets it down at the curb and then goes back to the truck to grab something else and returns to pick up the items, carries them to the trash, and then at 12:41 p.m., Barry is seen walking back to the hotel with nothing in his hands. At 12:42 p.m., Barry returns to his hotel room and does not leave again until 6:03 p.m., where Barry is now wearing his jeans, his boots, and now a black short sleeve shirt with his khaki backpack. While Barry was in his hotel room for those few hours, he says to law enforcement that he was just watching TV. And at 3:30 p.m., he texts Suzanne to call him. At 5:15, his neighbors back home are now calling him to report that there's nothing at the house. 5:45, they call again, and Barry leaves his hotel room at 6:03 p.m. When he goes outside of his room, he ends up calling the neighbors back. During these exchanges, Barry had told the neighbors to go ahead and call the police because he was driving home and had really bad signal. But when law enforcement got his phone records, they knew that he was actually still at the hotel the whole time. At 6:06 p.m., Barry pulls his truck to the front of the... So I don't know if you guys caught that. He's already told the cops and the neighbors that he's on his way. That he go ahead and call the cops because my signal's really bad. I'm on my way. He has not left. He's still just hanging out in his hotel room when he's talking to them. He hasn't gone anywhere. The hotel, and at 6:09 he calls his employee Morgan to let her know that he's going to be leaving and what's happening. At 6:10 p.m. you can see Barry on the lobby surveillance walking and carrying a bunch of hand tools that he ends up asking the desk worker if it's okay to leave there for his workers that will be arriving that night and early the next morning. At 6:12 p.m. he leaves them hand tools to rebuild this retaining wall that they'd already done. They'd done the retaining wall. He knows what equipment is needed. They're there to fix it from his own fuck up. And he leaves them like a shovel. What the fuck are they supposed to do with a shovel? Barry leaves Broomfield and heads back to Salida, where he is seen then on the body cam footage near the location of where Suzanne's bike was found. During the interview with Morgan, Barry's employee, she stated that Barry and her had worked together on Saturday, May 9th, that she was going to go with Barry on Sunday, May 10th at about 5 p.m. to Broomfield to spend the night to work on a project up there the following day. Barry was supposed to pick up Morgan Sunday to drive up there. Barry did not tell Morgan that he was leaving early in the day, and he never came by to pick her up. So when she called Barry to follow up on what was going on, he told her they were going to need additional help, and so she asked Jeffrey Puckett to come up with her. Cassidy Cordova is another employee who was going to be meeting them on Monday morning to work on the job with them. When Morgan and Jeff arrived in Broomfield, Jeff actually checked into Barry's room. There was talk of an overpowering chlorine smell that was in the room. And when Morgan, Jeff, and Cassidy met up at the work site the following day, they realized this was a job that was going to require a bobcat. There was no way they were going to be able to do this job with the hand tools that Barry had left at the front desk. Not to mention the bricks that were needed still had not arrived to even get the job done. When Barry was asked about all of these things by investigators, he would say that he just could not recall anything that he was throwing away, that he had a very messy truck, which was true, according to the pictures taken by the investigators, and that he just would sometimes throw things away, and he just couldn't recall what they were. He did admit to throwing away some tranquilizer stuff, but that was the only thing he would admit to. When asked about the clothing or the black container or any of those things, he just simply said, I don't recall. And when asked about why his hotel room would have an overpowering smell of chlorine, he said that his room was close to where the pool was located, and maybe that the employees possibly used chlorine to clean because of COVID. It's important to note here that the CBI agents actually went back to the hotel in September of 2020 and checked the room that Barry had been in, and it still smelled like chlorine. So back to the evening of May 10th, after Barry met with officers at the location that Suzanne's bike was found, he goes back to the house with them where they're asking him to locate an article of clothing for scent dogs to be able to use to help find Suzanne. The officers tell him to not touch anything, just in case. He directs them to the master bedroom into the closet where he points out a pair of Suzanne's biking shorts. And next to the biking shorts is actually her biking gloves, which is interesting. If she only had one pair, she would have had them with her, I would think. But she could have had multiple pairs. The officers end up keeping the house as a potential crime scene for approximately 10 days with the first search warrant. During this time, they discover the spy pen, they discover the tranquilizer cap in the dryer, which during the preliminary hearing, we actually learned that the cap is not of a tranquilizer dart. It's actually the cap to the needle of the liquid that is used to fill the dart. We also learned that the cap came back with 2 DNA profiles on it, and Barry's was excluded. They also find that one of the daughter's bed sheets has been stripped off the bed, which they also locate in the dryer prior to finding the tranquilizer dart cap. And the investigators were told to look for 3 books that Suzanne typically had together in the house. One was a Bible, one was an Al-Anon book, and the other was her journal. Investigators did find her Bible, and the Al-Anon book, but were unable to locate all of her journals. But in the fireplace, the investigators described material that could potentially be consistent with a journal. Also in the fireplace was a piece of wood that was not firewood, although there was a stack of firewood sitting next to the fireplace, as well as papers that they thought could have been potentially wrapping paper, and 2 pieces of metal, along with something they thought could have potentially been like the binding of a book. In the kitchen, they found a half-drink cup of coffee, which was odd because it hadn't been washed yet. And the defense actually states during the preliminary hearing that Barry doesn't drink coffee, so it had to have been Suzanne's. And in the dishwasher, they found 1 plate. But Barry had said that he and Suzanne had steak on Saturday night. He says they had 1 steak that they split, but there was only 1 plate in the dishwasher, so they ate off of the same plate apparently. Investigators also searched Suzanne's Range Rover, and in there they actually found her Camelback, which is something that she would have used while she was biking it. She keeps her snacks, her drink, so on and so forth inside the Camelback. They also located Suzanne's purse and wallet, and in the wallet was her ID cards, her insurance cards, cash, and the insurance cards were specifically interesting because she actually had an appointment for her cancer treatment the following day on May 11th, and she would have needed her ID to leave or her insurance cards to go to the doctor, and she took none of that with her. What they were not able to locate, though, was Suzanne's cell phone or her phone charger that she usually kept next to her bed. Both were gone. But the biggest thing that they did not find in the house was blood. And prosecutors had to prove that there was another way that Suzanne couldn't have survived without bloodshed. In Suzanne's Range Rover on the glove box, investigators found male DNA on the glove box in Suzanne's car that actually matched partial DNA profiles found in 3 unsolved sexual assault cases, 1 in Illinois and 2 in Arizona. And this piece of evidence was always a bit of confusion for the public because the DNA found on Suzanne's glove box was a partial match to these 3 unsolved sexual assault cases. I don't recall if we were ever actually told if it was the same partial of the profile that matched all 3, or if it was different pieces of the partial DNA that matched each one. But for the defense, this was important because it showed that there was another person's DNA at the quote-unquote crime scene, and it did not match Barry's. For the prosecution, they essentially explained it away by saying it could have been somebody who had been working on the car, or it could have been, somebody from a car wash, but that there wasn't enough evidence to create probable cause that Suzanne's disappearance was connected to anything to do with this DNA. And Suzanne's bike and her bike helmet, once they were recovered, were also tested for DNA. And Barry's DNA was excluded from any found on the helmet. It was only found on the bicycle seat, which investigators believe was possible that Barry had touched the bicycle on the night of May 10th, near the location where the bicycle was found. In the area where the bike helmet was located, the investigators did find tire tracks, which they took impressions of. Those came back with no connection to any of Barry's vehicles. Barry was interviewed over 20 times by multiple law enforcement agencies in regards to Suzanne's disappearance. And as I talked about earlier, we know that Barry's stories would continue to evolve as law enforcement was approaching him with new evidence. But a couple other things that I want to touch on is during these interviews, Barry would actually make comments referencing Suzanne in the past tense. He would make comments like, "I wish you would have known her," or "known how great she was." But also during this time, Barry is upset with his friends and family and law enforcement for even insinuating that Suzanne is deceased. He believes that she is alive and that she is coming back to him at some point. Another oddity that was important to the investigators during these conversations was when Barry was asked to describe the last time he saw Suzanne, he couldn't really do it. He would go from saying, "I'm not really sure, she was just laying in the bed," or "I didn't see her at all," or "I'm not sure she got dressed from last night when we were intimate," to, "Oh yes, she definitely put on shorts and the tank top." One of the last things he says is that he remembered that she was snoring, but he ultimately would never say exactly what Suzanne looked like that morning when he left for work. And as with many people who find themselves to be the suspect of a homicide, they like to divert the attention of law enforcement by naming another suspect, which Barry, of course, does. And he also is able to throw a little shade at Suzanne why he does it. He decides to tell law enforcement that Suzanne has recently had a history of taking a lot of medication and that she is using alcohol a lot more frequently than she used to. He also says that she frequently meets up with somebody he refers to as Tim, who becomes known as CBD Tim, to purchase CBD and hemp oil. Investigators meet with Tim and he says, yes, I was selling hemp oil to Suzanne, but he ultimately doesn't have anything to do with her disappearance. And when investigators show Barry the selfie that Suzanne actually took and sent to her lover, he decides to say that she looks drunk, like she has drunk eyes. Don't those look like drunk eyes to you? Despite telling law enforcement that him and Suzanne actually had a great night on Saturday before he went out of town, due to the fact that Suzanne was not on any substances and that she was sober. It's also important to mention that during one of the interviews with Johnny Grusing, he asked Agent Grusing for immunity. And if he was to receive immunity, he would open up his life in hopes of helping them to find Suzanne. It doesn't really make any sense for him to ask for immunity if he's not guilty. I don't know what he thought he was going to be able to get in exchange. It's a very odd request for somebody who claims to be so innocent. After 4 days of a preliminary hearing that was held in August of 2021, Judge Patrick Murphy decides on September 17th, 2021, that Barry's case can be bound over for trial. And he cites the following for his reasons that he believes he can find all reasonable inference in favor of the prosecution. He says that there is probable cause that Barry may have committed the murder and tampered with a deceased body. He says that there is two motivations for this crime. One, Suzanne's affair, and two, Suzanne wanted to file for divorce. But a rather unexpected decision was also given by Judge Murphy. He allowed Barry Morphew to post $500,000 cash-only bond to be released from prison. This did not sit well with many people. So Barry was able to post his bond, but he had to stay in Chaffee County and he had to wear an ankle monitor. Barry and Suzanne's daughters were standing by their dad, as well as his mom. They were typically in the courtroom almost every single day throughout the preliminary hearing and many of the motions hearing that would continue after. The one person we did not see was a lady named Shoshana Dark, who was suspected of dating Barry all the way back to July of 2020. They've denied having a relationship, but they have spent a lot of time together. This brings me to where Judge Patrick Murphy ends up having to recuse himself from the trial. So Shoshana and Barry are friends. She actually went on to Barry and Suzanne's property after it had been sold to collect a package. Not quite sure what was in the package, but there had been a lot of speculation that it was some type of supplement. It's called Spark, but I'm not 100% sure that that was ever confirmed. So Shoshana ends up getting charged with trespassing. Well, Shoshana actually knows Judge Patrick Murphy from high school. He cannot reside over her case. So the defense actually files a motion and says, hey, if you can't reside over her case, then you shouldn't actually reside over Barry's either, because she's most likely going to be called as a witness at Barry's trial. So he ultimately has to recuse himself. In January of 2022, there was a 2-day motions hearing brought on by the defense, who was asking the new judge, Judge Ramsey Lama, to dismiss the charges based on what they believed to be corruption in the prosecutor's office, stating multiple discovery violations and Brady violations and untimely release of evidence to the defense team, and an internal investigation that was happening with one of the agents from CBI. Ultimately, Judge Lama rules that he is not going to dismiss the case, but he does side with the defense, requesting that any and all evidence better be given to the defense at this time. It does allow the defense access to all the internal investigation that is happening with Agent Cahill, even though Agent Cahill had been removed from the case quickly after the preliminary hearing. The defense is also stating that one of the prosecutors, who has since retired, is also involved in covering up evidence or not disclosing evidence in a timely manner to the defense team. When the documents are actually released later regarding Agent Cahill's internal investigation, one of the things he actually says about the Morphew case was that he believed that arresting Barry at that time was extremely premature. He did not think that the state had the evidence to back up the claims that Barry had killed Suzanne and disposed of her body. In some of the following motions hearings, Judge Lama ends up ruling that 12 of the 14 expert witnesses that the prosecution has on their list are not going to be able to testify. He cites different reasons for the majority of them. One was a canine handler who had written a report, but that report was never asked for by the prosecution, and it was never delivered to the defense. Another was the tranquilizer expert who was going to testify about what would happen to Suzanne if she had been shot with a tranquilizer. A couple of the witnesses were going to be allowed to testify, but they were not going to be allowed to testify as experts in the field that they were qualified for. This was going to be a very big hindrance on the prosecution's case against Barry Morphew. So in April of 2022, in a very dramatic turn of events, only 2 weeks before Barry was actually set to go to trial, prosecutor Linda Stanley asked the court to dismiss all charges against Barry Morphew without prejudice, so she would be able to try him again if she was able to get more evidence to support the charges. She also states that the prosecutors and the investigators actually have a pretty good indication of where they believe that Suzanne's body is, and that at that current moment, that area was covered in snow and they were not going to be able to search it at that time. So Barry Morphew was technically a free man on April 19th of 2022 and free to go home, free to go anywhere, free to do whatever Barry Morphew wanted to do. And one of the first things on his list was to do an interview with his two daughters on Good Morning America on May 6th, 2022, which was 4 days from the 2-year anniversary of his wife's disappearance.
We've been silent for a long time, and we've decided that we finally want to break the silence. It's been an emotional roller coaster, but we feel like we can finally take our first steps in healing, which is a blessing. And yeah, we just know our dad better than anyone.
Okay, so this is the older daughter, Mallory, and then the younger daughter is Macy. So you can just by paying attention to their body language, like I said, I've never spoke to these people. I can't tell you what they think or feel, but from what I said earlier a little bit ago, it seems that Mallory is full on, totally on dad's side. And Maisie is like more of like I don't know really what to do, but she does stand by her dad. So I'll say that. I mean, you can take it for however you want. So don't continue to think about their hair color, though, allegedly innocent, because as we know, they both change their hair color all the time. So don't go like, ooh, brunette must be younger one, because they do. They dye their hair a lot. Yeah, don't ever do an interview, MB, right? Yeah, Mallory, and she's the son that Barry never had. The fishing and the hunting and the backcountry for weeks with dad. Correct. Barry's not wearing sweatpants. Mallory's hair is now black. Yeah, see, that's why you can't go with that, because they do. They change their hair color all the time, because at the beginning I did that. I was like, wait a minute. They switched it up on me. But they're both gorgeous, beautiful young women. I mean, they have their whole life ahead of them. And now, either way, I feel terrible for these two kids. I don't know why they want to stick by him, but you know, maybe they'll see the light this time around. I just don't know. But like I said, one of them was absolutely at his arraignment. So this is, in this interview, this is the older daughter, and then Maisie's the younger daughter on the other side. Maisie's the one that had her boyfriend at the house.
Else, and we know he was not involved in our mom's disappearance. We want to heal. We feel like we haven't been able to heal these past 2 years.
I just love my girls, and I love my wife, and I just want her to be found.
I just hope that Linda will step up to the plate and do everything she can to find our mom, because what they've done is not fair. And we're never going to stop looking for our mom.
And one of Barry's attorneys had a few comments of her own that she wanted to add in regards to what she thought of the prosecution.
And if you want to honor Suzanne and you want to honor the daughters, go find Suzanne. Prosecutors need to be held responsible, and they need to pay for the damage they've caused. to Barry, which is frankly nearly irreparable because it's hard for anybody to believe that Barry is not who they claim he was.
Almost a year after the charges were dismissed against Barry Morphew, his attorneys filed a request for an investigation into the Colorado Chaffee County prosecutors, including Linda Stanley. She filed an 83-page affidavit on March 29th of 2023 to show her claims about the dishonesty and the unethical practices of the prosecutor's office. She claims that they were failures to disclose and misleading testimony in an effort to arrest Barry Morphew and try Barry Morphew for a crime that they did not have the evidence to support the charges. She also claims that there was a placement of false and misleading allegations regarding the discovery obligations and documents that were filed in the court. She has multiple things that she cites as her beliefs on why this is a valid complaint and an investigation should be opened.
The Morphew case was dismissed a year ago tomorrow. It has been nearly 3 years since Suzanne Morphew disappeared. And the prosecution keeps claiming that they're going to find her. Their case was baseless to begin with. Their affidavit they filed was like a tabloid, filled with misrepresentations, false information, and concealed extremely favorable evidence. But they went through a year putting Mr. Morphew behind bars in a cage for 5 months, concealing evidence of innocence.
In May of 2023, Barry Morphew filed a civil suit against the prosecutors of Chaffee County, the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, and the FBI. He is seeking $15 million for the damages he believes were caused by the prosecutors and law enforcement officials. The complaint alleges that the prosecutors, both state and federal law enforcement agencies, conspired to deprive Barry Morphew of his due process rights and his right to be free from seizure, incarceration, deprivation of property, and restrictions on liberty, to fabricate evidence against him, to manipulate witness testimony, to suppress, conceal, and omit exculpatory evidence, to falsify charges, and to conceal the knowing and reckless misconduct, and to protect one another from liability, which ultimately deprived Barry Morphew of his constitutional rights. And near the 3-year anniversary of his wife's disappearance, him and his 2 daughters decide to do another interview.
What have these last 3 years been like for you?
Very, very sad. Very confusing.
Just so traumatic. Like literally our worst nightmare.
Did you have anything to do with the disappearance of your wife?
Absolutely not. It's very hurtful to lose your reputation and your integrity.
His daughter's standing by him.
You never had a shred of doubt once you heard the evidence from law enforcement against your dad?
I've never had a shred of doubt.
Not one.
Law enforcement, the DAs, believed that they had their guy, and they believe that there's a mountain of evidence against you. There's just not Suzanne's body.
They're wrong. They've got tunnel vision, and they looked at one person, and they've got too much pride to say they're wrong and look somewhere else.
These charges were dropped without prejudice, which means if authorities feel like there's more evidence, they could charge you again. Do you live with fear of that?
Well, I was innocent the first time they arrested me, so I'm sure it's possible. But I don't have anything to worry about. I've done nothing wrong.
Was there any indication before she disappeared that something was amiss?
No.
Did you observe any fights, arguments, disagreements between your mom and your dad that concerned you before?
No.
We had a wonderful life.
But remember the text messages that her boyfriend got that she said, "Can you go check on my mom? She's not answering the phone, and I'm afraid that my parents got in a big fight." And we know from the text messages between Suzanne and her friend Sheila that Macy has seen them fighting. And so this bothered me a lot because here she's saying she never saw them fighting, never saw them arguing, nothing. And we know that's not true.
Wonderful marriage. She was just so
wonderful
loving
marriage
and giving and such a good mother. And I know that she was going through chemotherapy for the last couple of years before her disappearance. And I know she was going through some hard things and made some bad decisions.
What kind of bad decisions?
She was really having trouble with the chemotherapy and the drugs.
When you found out that Suzanne was having an affair, what was your first thought?
My heart was broke. My heart was broken. I didn't believe it.
What's been the hardest part?
Just not having mom.
Not knowing.
It's really difficult, especially because of the lack of closure we have.
And Barry's attorneys once again took this opportunity to speak to the public.
So I know that 15 million is a huge number, but I don't think that, in my mind, that covers any of the damage that's happened to Barry and the girls.
They know he's innocent. And if they would just look for Suzanne outside of where they hypothesized Barry could have possibly buried her remains, they could find her.
So as we are today, Barry is a free man and free to do whatever Barry chooses to do. Although he does have to live under the cloud of suspicion from most of the world at this point, as well as the possibility of being re-prosecuted in the disappearance of his wife. Ultimately, the most important thing is Suzanne is still missing. Nobody knows where she is. Nobody has found her. Okay, so that's the end of that part of it. So like I said, this was I had made this prior to her remains being found. So let me go in to get you guys some info on that. So on September 22nd of 2023, there was actually a search party that was out. I believe it was CBI, but somebody in chat might correct me if I'm wrong. And they were actually looking for a lady named Edna Quintana. I think that's right. And they came across the remains of Suzanne Morphew. So that was September 22nd, 2023. They ended up on September 27th of 2023 confirming that it was Suzanne's remains, and that was when we did the live. So if you wanted to go back and watch that, that's more live and me going like, holy crap. I was actually literally starting a Delphi live, and I got a notification from my friend Mallory, and was like, they found Suzanne, and I'm like, no freaking way. So we ended up doing a live on that, and I was kind of like all over the place because it was kind of crazy. But I'm just going to show you guys kind of a general idea of where she was found. Let's see if you guys can see this. So you guys will notice this from the. Thank you guys for the compliments on that video. That was probably one of the hardest ones I've done. Honestly, because his first probable cause affidavit was like 129 pages long. It was crazy. There was a lot of info. Plus, we'd had hearings and things like that on it. So when they find her, it's like a huge thing. Like, what do you mean they found her? Where the heck did they find her? How did they find her? You know, what's all the things? So it was a search party that was out for this other missing lady named Edna. Now, I do want to say that Edna's remains were located in June of this year of 2025. So the person that they were looking for in 2023, her family now also has closure, and they were and they found her remains as well. So Edna has also now been found. I mean, the timing is just, if you believe in, you know, anything, like it's very interesting that they find Edna and Barry gets indicted by a grand jury. Right, jury. So, I mean, that's like just amazing timing, and I'm just so happy that her family got the closure they were looking for at that time. you know, all the years ago when she went missing. So like I said, you guys have seen some of these spots from the video that I just played for you. And so like this was their house. And I kind of talk about it in the video that to get out of like the area where their house is, you kind of have to go through all these like crazy little twirly like areas. And her bike is found right over here. And then he goes west, remember, because he's looking for, he sees the bull elk that doesn't actually have antlers in May, but whatever. And the helmet is located over here. And these are approximate. Obviously, I don't have like longitude and latitude for them. But, and then he proceeds to turn around and then drives this way to go up to Broomfield. Now, she's found in Moffett, in just a remote area, shallow grave that is south. And like I said, if you want to go watch the video, and that one's live, where we do go through and map out exactly where she was found, and by the reporters that were out there. Yeah, Edna's remains were 10 miles from Suzanne's. But I mean, they didn't know. They're just out there searching. Like, that's crazy, right? That's true, Indiana girl. So down here in Moffett, and this is, or that's Moffett, and you go past Moffett, and then you go down here, and this is essentially where her remains are found in. It's a crazy location, like 3 miles from town, but it's out like in rural nothingness. Like there's nothing out here. Like there's a trailer. So I do have, like, on the channel, there's a Suzanne Morphew playlist. So now, so 2023, we are going like, holy crap, like we're going to have an indictment. They've got to be able to figure out what happened. You know, they come out and they say, you know, that it is her remains, and we don't really hear a lot about it. They go and take the remains, which obviously had been there for a while, or she'd been deceased for a while. Let me just preface it by saying that. She'd been deceased for a while. And so we don't really hear a ton about what they find out. We know that when the autopsy is over, they actually release the remains back to her family, and they have a huge memorial back in Indiana. So at this point, the family has moved back to Indiana, and that's where we think pretty much Barry's at. He's not in Colorado anymore. And I don't know anybody who knew that he was actually in Arizona. I don't know, you guys online or you guys in chat might say you knew that. I did not know that. I was not tracking him that closely. Last I knew, he was in Indiana, and now all of a sudden we get, hold on. We get Barry Morphew has been indicted by a grand jury and is going to be extradited back to Colorado. And so now we have his new indictment. He gets extradited back to Colorado. They have his arraignment. Allegedly innocent. Do you still have that up or no? Did you take it down? Because I know like that, like people were playing it, and then the judge was like, no, we're not allowed to do this. And so I know some people kept it, some people didn't. I was watching it on Allegedly Innocent's channel. So we're going to read through the new indictment and see what they have to say based on what we already knew from before. She did have a port when they found her remains. You didn't know where he was? Yeah, I didn't know where he was. I thought last I knew he was in Indiana. So we're going to read through the indictment that takes us now up to 2025. So it should give you guys enough of the backstory. I'm glad that I had that available. Once again, this is why I'm trying to do that. And with any case that I've covered from prior to this channel being around, I'm trying to create like a little documentary that gives all the info and the research so that we have that for when things do pop off with that case. I probably have like 3 that I'm in the process of doing currently that I just run out of time for because, you know, there's only 24 hours in a day and nobody's figured out a way to make it longer than that yet. Oh, and then I got to pull up an article real quick that I had forgot to pull. Hey, Lynn, let me pull up this article real quick that I had and I had sent to myself so that I could show it to you guys, and we'll go through the indictment. And then if you guys have any questions in chat, please feel free to answer. or feel free to answer. Feel free to answer your own fucking questions. Feel free to ask them. If I don't have the answer, somebody in chat probably will. Let's see. Okay. We'll read that after we do the indictment. Add more. It's a solid plan. Can't hear. It is. It's a mountain of it. It's just so much. Were you able to find in the timeline when he buried her? No, I don't know, but we do find out later that she's definitely been moved. So I'm very curious on your guys' thoughts on when you think all of that would have happened. And where was she during that time? Hi, Judy. Can you not hear me for real? Don't dox me. Can you hear me? Okay, so Chelsea, that is a shortish one. I don't know if I can do a shortish one. So one of the things I actually did while we were in Wisconsin, when the girls would be out doing their own thing, was I actually started writing out, I think I could do it in 6 parts is what I had kind of mapped out, a Delphi documentary thing. But those videos are not easy to make. They take a very long time. And like, I'm not a money hungry channel by any means, but let me just put it to you like this. That Suzanne Morphew video that we just watched is like 50 some minutes long. That took me probably 80 hours to make. At least. It was probably more than that. But it took me probably at least 80 hours to make that video. And I mean, it has like 5,000 views on it, which is, you're making $3 on over 80 hours worth of work. So I just want, like, for perspective purposes, like, as much as I love doing it, like, that it makes it really hard. So I want to do them, but I have to also kind of prioritize things that are not going to be in my labor absence. Well, thank you. I mean, that's what it's just kind of, it doesn't always, things don't always come to, what do you call, like, equal measure or whatever you want. I don't know the right terminology for that. I was just not talking. Okay, that's good. Okay, so now we're on to this. I have only looked at this on my phone. I have not actually sat down and read it. So this could be interesting. There was even things in my own video that I was like, oh yeah, I forgot all about CBD, Tim. Okay, so murder in the first degree, count 1, murder in the first degree after deliberation on or about May 9th to May 10th. At least they're doing May 9th now. In a triable in the state of Colorado, Barry Morphew unlawfully, feloniously, after deliberation and with the intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Suzanne Morphew. So probable cause for count 1 is as follows. At 5:46 p.m. on May 10th, 2020, Mother's Day Sunday, Suzanne Morphew was reported missing to police by her neighbor. The last known person to see her alive. Can you guys see this? I just want to make sure it's big enough for you guys to see. The last known person to see her alive was her husband, Barry Morphew. Investigators responded to the Morphew residence of 19057 Puma Path near Salida, Colorado, to investigate the missing persons report. The house was locked and Suzanne Morphew was not home. Her vehicle was in the garage. Her Range Rover vehicle, I don't know if that has to be Range Rover. I don't know why they marked that out. Her blank vehicle was in the garage. There were no signs of forced entry, and her bike was missing. Later that evening, her bike was located down a hillside off a dirt road between her house and Highway 50. The bike was located less than a mile from the Morphew home. On May 14th of 2020, her bike helmet was located 10 meters off the side of Highway 50, approximately 1.52 miles west of the Morphew home and approximately 0.84 miles west of where her bike was located. Barry Morphew was interviewed and told police that he set his alarm and woke up at 4:30 a.m. We know that's a lie because we know that he's up already and he's opening and closing his doors all night long. We know that from his telematics that they got from his truck. Yes, Judy, that's what I'm reading now. Where was I? He told police that he left at 5 a.m. on May 10th, 2020 for a pre-planned work trip in Broomfield, Colorado. We know that's also a lie. It was not technically pre-planned for him to leave that early. He was supposed to be picking up his coworker or the person who worked for him named Morgan, and he doesn't even pick her up. He just drives by, and she said that she actually heard him drive by, or she thinks it's him because you could tell by the sound of his truck. So according to Barry Morphew, Suzanne Morphew was still asleep in bed when he left the house at 5 a.m. on May 10th, 2020. He told police she planned to ride her bike that day. Barry Morphew stated that upon arriving in Broomfield that morning, he checked into a hotel before leaving shortly after for the job site. He told police that he received a call around 5 p.m. on May 10th, 2020 from his neighbors while physically at the Broomfield job site. The neighbors told Barry Morphew that his daughters were concerned because they could not reach Suzanne all day. Barry instructed the neighbors to check the house and specifically to look for her bike. The neighbors reported to Barry that neither Suzanne nor the bike were at the house, and Barry then instructed them to call the sheriff. Police interviewed one of Barry's employees scheduled to assist him with the Broomfield job. The employee told law enforcement that the employee and Barry were not planning to leave for Broomfield until the evening hours of May 10th. They were supposed to drive together. Instead, Barry left without telling the employee. Barry called the employee at approximately 11:18 a.m. and informed that employee that he had left without them. When the employee arrived in Broomfield on Sunday evening, the employee, which is Morgan, I don't know why they're hiding her name now, noticed that Barry Morphew had failed to bring the proper tools with him for the job, and the necessary materials for the job had not yet arrived at the job site. Review of the cameras at the hotel and the nearby businesses revealed that Barry Morphew was in the Broomfield area for approximately 9 hours and 45 minutes. Of those hours, he spent less than 1/2 hour at the job site. Instead, besides 2 brief visits to the job site area, electronic evidence and cameras from businesses showed him driving around to various locations and discarding unknown items in separate trash cans. Hotel footage then showed Barry Morphew arriving back at his hotel room and remaining inside the room from approximately 12:34 p.m. to 5:55 p.m. Inconsistent with his statement to police, he was in the hotel and not at the job site when he received the call about his wife Suzanne being unresponsive and missing. He's such a liar. In early interviews with Barry Morphew, he told law enforcement that his marriage to Suzanne was the best and that the two had a wonderful weekend together. When Barry was asked whether Suzanne would say anything different about their relationship, Barry said no. Well, he knows she's not going to say anything about anything. She's not talking. Barry's statements about his marriage to Suzanne were inconsistent with other witness accounts and evidence located. Specifically, investigators learned that Suzanne confided in people that she was unhappy in the marriage in the weeks and months leading to her disappearance. She discussed plans to divorce Barry with her close friend. She maintained documented notes of problems in the relationship recovered from electronic devices and the physical search of the Morphew home. Suzanne Morphew had been having a secret affair with an old acquaintance who lived out of state. She communicated with him daily over LinkedIn and WhatsApp. Suzanne's last known electronic message to anyone was to this person on May 9th, 2020 at 2:11 p.m., just 32 minutes before Barry returned to the home that day. An overall timeline of the week of Suzanne Morphew's disappearance shows that the disappearance coincided with her daughter, would be Macy, the only other occupant of the Morphew residence, leaving on a pre-planned road trip out of state. Because of this, Suzanne Morphew and Barry Morphew expected to be alone at the residence starting on May 5th until either late in the day on the 10th or the 11th. Suzanne drove blank to Gunnison, Colorado, that's got to be Macy, on May 5th, 2020 to depart with her sister and friend on the planned road trip. After May 5th, Barry Morphew and Suzanne were alone at the house. A forensic download of Barry Morphew's cell phone revealed that Barry Morphew had deleted a text chain with Suzanne from which an image of a single text remained. A screenshot of this single text message was saved on Barry Morphew's phone on May 6, 2020. That image revealed a text from Suzanne that stated, "I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years. We just need to figure this out civilly." I don't remember that being a screenshot, but okay. Yeah, nobody's there to celebrate Mother's Day. On May 11th of 2020, authorities commenced a search of the Morphew residence that spanned several days. The state of the residence and vehicles showed no signs of a break-in or an intruder. Even with no signs of a break-in or intruder, law enforcement collected items of potential evidence and DNA swabs. DNA analysis of the swabs collected produced several DNA profile mixtures consistent with what would be expected in the common areas of a home or a vehicle. The mixture profiles were processed through offender databases and were compared to the profiles of known individuals who may have been present in the vehicles or the residence. The results did not lead to any stranger or intruder suspects. Okay. An expert in DNA analysis testified that law enforcement provided analysts with one of the partial profile files developed from the glove box of Suzanne Morphew's vehicle for further investigation using a keyboard search. This allowed for additional comparisons to profiles in more databases with less stringent quality control standards than the National DNA Index System for the limited purpose of creating possible investigative leads. That expert further testified that there were quote-unquote matches to outside databases nationwide. The term match used by DNA analysts does not mean identical. Rather, a match only means that there were other profiles that could not be excluded at the time, or at the limited number of loci available from the partial profile for comparison. Okay. The expert explained that she had compared the quote-unquote matches from these databases to the partial profile from the mixture on the glove box and excluded those out-of-state profiles as not originating from the same contributor in all but 3 instances. Finally, the expert explained that just because the profiles from those databases matched at the limited loci available for the comparison, it did not mean that any of the people from the out-of-state profiles were the same person that contributed to the partial profile to the mixture on the glove box. Law enforcement investigated those 3 partial matches obtained from 3 separate out-of-state sources and found no connection to the case. Okay, so I talked about this a little bit in the video, so it seems that they answered my question somewhat. So they're all just partial matches that don't actually match to anybody who would have had access to anything or been available to, or been around the area to be involved in this. Okay. So law enforcement located a locked gun safe in the garage during the search of the Morphew residence. Inside that gun safe, law enforcement located a dart rifle or tranquilizer rifle positioned toward the front of the safe. Law enforcement also found packages of new dart brand tranquilizer darts in the gun safe. The packages of the darts included capped hypodermic needles inside of them, which were designed to load the darts. Law enforcement found one of these needle caps in the dryer after the dryer's contents were removed. Law enforcement also found men's shorts. Interesting. Among the contents of the dryer that were removed prior to finding the needle cap. The shorts appeared consistent with the shorts Barry Morphew was seen on video wearing on May 9th, 2020. So he washed the shorts that he was wearing on May 9th. Less than 1 hour before he returned to the Morphew residence. That's new information. I didn't know that before. I just knew the bed sheets were in there. I didn't know his shorts were in there that he was known to be wearing that day. No tranquilizer formula was located during law enforcement's search of the home and vehicles. Police investigated numerous electronic devices and Suzanne Morphew's social media account, searching among other things for proof of life. That investigation revealed that Suzanne Morphew had not communicated electronically with any living person after 2:11 p.m. on May 9th, 2020. Her last possible activity on any account protected by password access was 3:08 p.m., over 24 hours prior to her being reported missing. Records showing her typical use of electronics and social media demonstrated that this was inconsistent with her typical pattern of life in the days leading up to her disappearance. Additionally, witnesses indicated they attempted to communicate with Suzanne Morphew throughout this time frame, but received no response from her. These witnesses indicated that her lack of response was out of the ordinary. Okay. Barry Morphew's electronic devices were also analyzed. A download of the infotainment system on Barry Morphew's truck recovered telematics data showing the location and activity of his truck at certain times on May 9th and May 10th, 2020. A download of Barry Morphew's cell phone showed additional location information. Based on data from his cell phone, Barry Morphew returned to the Morphew residence at 2:43 p.m. on May 9th of 2020. The data did not show his phone or truck leaving the residence again until the morning of May 10th, 2020. Now, the cat may have been in the pocket. Exactly. Good thinking. The download of Barry Morphew's cell phone registered events related to his phone. An expert forensic analyst determined that some of these events were in fact Barry Morphew's phone being turned off during the time frame of May 9th into May 10th. Turning off a cellular device effectively disables its ability to record location information. Specifically, the forensic analyst noted that Barry Morphew's phone download showed it was turned off at 2:47 p.m. So he gets home at 2:43 p.m., turns off his cell phone at 2:47 p.m. Only a few minutes after he arrived home at the residence where Suzanne Morphew sent her last electronic communication to anyone. At approximately 10:17 p.m. on May 9th, the phone was turned back on. Barry Morphew's cell phone was again turned off at 4:32 a.m. on May 10th, prior to him leaving the residence on his trip to Broomfield, Colorado, and was not turned on again until 5:37 a.m. when location information showed him on the road, already in the area of Johnson Village, Colorado. Testimony established that the times Barry Morphew turned off his phone corresponded to periods of time of significance in the case where location information was consequently unavailable. This is intriguing. Similarly, further analysis of the information from Barry Morphew's infotainment system, the quote-unquote telematics, in his truck showed an irregular gap in recorded activity, specifically from approximately 3:49 a.m. to approximately 8:10 a.m. on May 10th. There is no recorded data registering on Barry's infotainment system. I bet if we got Man Shannon, he could find it. An indication of no truck activity from telematics is inconsistent with other facts developed from Barry Morphew's phone, surveillance footage, and Barry Morphew's statements about his activities on May 10th. Specifically, the telematics data showed Barry Morphew arrive at his residence at 2:43 p.m. on May 9th. It then registered various other activities throughout the afternoon at the residence until it ceased at 9:52 on May 9th. The telematics data then showed activities resume from 3:25 to 3:49 a.m. at a GPS location consistent with his driveway. Barry Morphew reported to law enforcement that he was asleep during that time frame. From 3:49 to 8:10 a.m. on May 10th, the infotainment system or telematics did not register any data, despite the fact that Barry Morphew's cell phone indicated the device was in Johnson's Village at 5:37 on that date, and Barry reported being in his truck traveling to Broomfield at that time. When recorded telematics data became available again in the records from the infotainment system download at 8:10 a.m. on May 10th, corresponding GPS coordinates showed that Barry Morphew had already arrived in the area of Broomfield. This gap is registered data is inconsistent with the pattern of telematics data captured in the days and weeks leading up to the event. Well, so how is it possible to even make it so it wouldn't record any of that? Is that even something that's possible? That you can change your infotainment system to not record your data that your car is doing? I don't know. That seems, well, I mean, if you can, and he's got it turned off up until 3:49 in the morning. I mean, then that could put that he's actually doing something with her body right then, that night. He seemed to be unplugging it. So that's crazy. Why plug it back in at 3:49? And why would you not know that you plugged it back in at 3:49 and then tell the cops that you didn't get up out of bed until 4:30? You know what I mean? Like, you'd think you'd know that. Be like, no, I was putting stuff in my truck at about 10 till 4. That dude, yeah, he did not sleep. This is why he was back in his hotel room all day. It was because he needed to fucking sleep. So that means the first time he does put her body somewhere, it has to be that night. Yeah, put his phone on airplane mode or just shut it off. Yeah, I'm going to be very curious about this, Richard. This is kind of intriguing to me. I don't recall ever hearing that the infotainment system was shut down. Okay, let me take a drink. Okay, so phone records for both Suzanne and Barry were analyzed by expert investigators. The FBI CAS team analyzed phone records for both Barry and Suzanne to determine location information and device usage related to their cell phones. In Suzanne's phone records, there was no indication of any user-initiated activity after the time Barry Morphew returned home at 2:43 p.m. on May 9th. Suzanne's cell phone device continued to connect through the RTT data with the cell tower that services the Morphew home throughout the night of May 9th into the early morning of May 10th. We know that because then her phone is last pings off at Poncha Springs. These automated data connections, however, were consistent with the tower reaching out to the phone to determine its location and not initiated by the user of the device. Okay. After 4:23 a.m. on May 10th, Suzanne's phone ceased to connect at all, ever again. Just 8 minutes later, Barry Morphew's cell phone data showed his phone ceased to connect starting at 4:31 a.m., consistent with the cell phone download showing it powering off at 4:32 a.m. So they were saying airplane mode before. Now they're saying that he powered it off. That's true, allegedly innocent. He did. He paid for a full monitoring system for multiple vehicles, including the Bobcat. Okay, let me see where I was. Where was I? Suzanne's cell phone never registered on any towers other than the tower consistent with the Morphew residence from the time Barry Morphew returned home at 2:43 on the 9th. to the time it ceased activity altogether at 4:23 on the 10th, 4:23 a.m. on the 10th. Despite searches for the device, Suzanne Morphew's cell phone was never found. Yeah, he says he woke up at 4:30. Police interviewed people that knew Barry prior to his move from Indiana to Colorado in 2018. These witnesses told law enforcement that Barry was a deer farmer in Indiana. Several individuals told law enforcement that Barry used a specific tranquilizer called BAM to sedate and transport deer on his deer farm. Barry Morphew admitted to using BAM in both Indiana and Colorado. Specifically, he admitted to using BAM in Colorado as recently as April of 2020, stating that at that time he had tranquilized a deer from the breezeway of the Morphew residence. Why? 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 On September 22nd of 2023, human remains were found in and around a shallow clandestine grave, and I never say this right, so it's like Sawachi. I say it wrong, and I apologize to anybody who's from around there, and I totally screw up the name of it. County, Colorado, near Highway 17. That's just south of Moffett. The remains were found a few hundred feet down a dirt road off of Highway 17. This location was less than an hour south of the Morphew residence by main highways. The remains were determined to be those of Suzanne Morphew. The majority of her bones were recovered. Many of the bones were significantly bleached. Along with Suzanne's bones, law enforcement recovered a cancer port and items of clothing, some of which were consistent with bike clothing Suzanne was known to wear. There was no visible perimortem trauma observed. A board-certified forensic anthropologist, a botanist, and an entomologist all analyzed the remains, and several observations were noted. There was a distinct lack of bug activity, which was inconsistent with the remains having decomposed at that location. This is how you know she's moved. The clothing items lacked evidence of decomposition, which was inconsistent with Suzanne Morphew wearing the bike clothes at the time her body decomposed. Holy what? Wait, what? Am I reading that right? Am I reading that right? He put the clothes on her after he moved her, after she'd already decomposed? Tell me that's a fucking joke. Is that for real? How have I not heard this yet? The clothing items lacked evidence of decomposition, which was inconsistent with Suzanne Morphew wearing the bike clothes at the time her body decomposed. So either he threw bike clothes in the grave with her after he moved her. I'd be curious, like if they were on her. Otherwise, he dressed her when he was moving her after she decomposed. Right, that's what I'm saying. So, but either way, he had to put clothes. He had to put clothes with her. Or on her. I mean, depending on how she's found, you're going to know whether he put them on her or not. Like, if he put them on her, dude, that's even fun. I don't even know. I don't even have words. Right. We don't know that the clothes are on the bones. That's what I'm asking. Like, so he either put them with her or he put them on her. Okay, additionally, there was a lack of animal predation on the bones. There was only a very small amount of desiccated soft tissue found on a few of the bones, and there was no hair mass located. Oh, fuck. All these features would have been expected if this had been the original gravesite where decomposition occurred. They didn't find her hair? You guys. They didn't find her hair. The forensic anthropologist opined that based on these factors, it was unlikely Suzanne decomposed from a fresh body to a skeleton at this location. Hold on one second. My husband needs me. My husband's like, are you going to want to eat dinner? I'm like, not right this second. No. Yeah. I don't think she had lost her hair. I don't think she had lost her hair. Her hair was her hair. Unless somebody knows something I don't about that, I'd never heard that she didn't have hair. So it was unlikely that Suzanne decomposed from a fresh body to a skeleton in this location. Okay. Yeah, she did have a port, but I still have never heard that she didn't have her own hair. She has hair, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think it was a wig. I don't know if nobody's ever said she wore wigs. I've never ever heard that. And I mean, they're looking for hair. I'm assuming that they're saying her hair is missing from this site. They're looking for her hair mass, which is, yeah, she had her. Okay, yeah, okay, that's what I was thinking too. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be looking for it. They wouldn't even be talking about it. That is just crazy. I did not know any of this. He just put clothing with her or on her after he moved her. The El Paso County Coroner's Office conducted an autopsy. In addition to the standard toxicology testing, the Coroner's Office conducted additional toxicology testing at the request of law enforcement for the presence of a chemical mixture known as BAM, or the combination of, I'm not going to say these right, buterphenol, azaparone. Hi, Ella. And metadopamidine. You know, I don't do medications. You guys can read those, right? There they are. It's BAM. It's BAM. The chief toxicologist tested Suzanne Morphew's bone marrow for the presence of BAM. All three of the individual chemicals that comprise BAM were present. Additionally, the metabolite for buterphenol was present, the B. The presence of the B metabolite eliminated the possibility of post-mortem BAM contamination. The metabolite's presence also indicated that her death was not immediate following the BAM exposure because Suzanne Morphew's body had begun to metabolize the drug before she died. So the coroner's office determined cause of death and manner of death as follows. Homicide by unspecified means in the setting of BAM intoxication. Okay, so go back to the original theory, which is that he chased her around the house, shot her with the tranquilizer, and then kills her. but not in a bloody way inside the house. And so there's obviously no signs of, like, you know, we talked about that unspent round, but the skeletal remains have no sign of that. And they found her skull. So yeah, he has to chase her around, which is probably why he has the cap in his pocket of his shorts, and then he ends up putting his shorts on, and then he sits down and has a fucking steak dinner because there's still one damn dish in the dishwasher. So he still sits down and has dinner by himself after, like, during this whole thing. CH, don't even bother. It'll never stick. My brain won't do it. So whatever he does to her, he does after he gives her this BAM tranquilizer, and they know it because it started to metabolize. So I don't know that yet, MB. Allegedly innocent said that, but I haven't got there yet, so I don't know that yet. We don't know that he ate steak. According to him, he ate steak. Okay, so a pharmacologist and medical doctor testified about the toxicology testing done to determine the presence of BAM in Suzanne Morphew's remains, about the chemical compound itself, and about the possible effects of that compound in humans. The expert explained that the toxicology testing done by the coroner's office met scientific standards of reliability and accuracy. He further testified that BAM is a chemical mixture of 3 specific compounds used as a tool for sedating animals for medical treatment or movement. Back in 2020 and the years leading up to Suzanne Morphew's disappearance, BAM was sold by only one company in the United States and could only be obtained by prescription from a veterinarian. BAM must be administered into the bloodstream through intravenous or intramuscular injection to be effective, as the skin and the GI tract do not absorb it effectively. BAM does not cause sedation instantaneously, but takes several minutes to take effect. Andrew! I hope you and the family are well. Welcome back. Well, I missed you. I missed you too. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so BAM does not cause sedation instantaneously, but takes several minutes to take effect. The BAM is designed not to be lethal and comes with reversal agents in the prescription kit. However, BAM is not FDA approved for any human use. For that reason, there are no scientific studies available that address the possible effects the compound would have on humans. The pharmacology expert testified that the compound would render the recipient wholly immobile, vulnerable, and unable to resist any constrictions to the recipient's ability to breathe. You would not be able to fucking fight back at all. You'd essentially just not be able to move. There have been vets who have said a woman her size, the BAM would likely to have her stop breathing. A lot of motive to keep those daughters. He left a trail on that, not going to bode well. I wonder if daughters have a lawyer that DA has to work through. Ooh, I don't know. If he's a hunter, he probably also does taxidermy. We know he sold antlers and probably knows how to clean bones. Probably, yes. I mean, like they're saying, like they don't even know how it would affect her because it's human versus animal. But I mean, I'm sure they could do some comparisons. That's what I'm thinking, Indiana girl. That's what I pictured when I read that. That was what I was picturing. Okay, so records were obtained for BAM prescriptions related to Barry Morphew. Records were also obtained for BAM prescriptions for all persons within the counties and adjacent counties to where the Morphews lived and where Suzanne Morphew's remains were located. Those records showed that Barry Morphew obtained and filled several prescriptions for BAM while living in Indiana. Barry Morphew's last purchase of BAM by prescription was in March of 2018. So that's prior to him moving. Barry obtained multiple kits that each contained multiple doses just a few months before the Morphews moved to Colorado. Records further showed that no other private citizens or private businesses in any of the surrounding counties had purchased BAM prescriptions from 2017 to 2020. Is that in Colorado they checked that, or is that in Indiana, or both? Colorado Parks and Wildlife and the National Park Service were the only entities that had received prescriptions of BAM in those counties from 2017 through 2020. Investigators learned that each of these government entities enforced tight regulations to monitor the BAM prescription storage and use. None of the BAM for those agencies was unaccounted for. Ultimately, the prescription records show that when Suzanne Morphew disappeared, only one private citizen living in that area of the state had access to BAM. And it's fucking Barry Morphew. All offenses against the peace and dignity of the people of the state of Colorado. So he's okay. So he's Lee Moore. That was one of his fake names, Lee Moore. Okay, so allegedly innocent. You have to fill me in on what is this about the elk situation? What is this about being with the elk? What about the 85 chipmunks, right? What about the 85 chipmunks? He's not, but he ran the deer farm. So he was getting them in Indiana so that he could transport the deer. So that's where he got all the BAM as a private citizen, was out in Indiana. Fucking Indiana. Why don't I know that? Where was that at? Is that in here? Yeah, what about the dead turkey? Let me see if I can find that. They didn't say that in here, right? Let me see if you answered. Okay. Elkhead was at the house the day Suzanne went missing, but no one ever saw the body of the elk. I think he had a compost and put them both in it. That's insider info, which allegedly innocent would have. She would know. But I don't, yeah. Where did we find out that there was elk in the grave with her? Oh, Andrew, thank you so much. Gifted 10 members. Just welcome to the new members. Welcome to the tea party. I'm very curious about that. We have loads of animal tranquilizers on our ranch. It's very common. What we had is more powerful and designed for wild game, but they are all similar. I'm gonna look for that because that is interesting info. I was thinking maybe it was gonna come up in here. I don't know. So I'm telling you guys, and I said it at the beginning of the live, like she's followed this case very closely for a very long time. So I don't put anything past her to have that info at all. Where is the article I wanted to show you guys? I think it's this one. Let me see if this is it. Okay, so this article is Inside Barry Morphew's Secretive Life 600 miles away from the epicenter of the murder investigation into his wife's death. So like I said, last I knew was that he was in Indiana, but I wasn't really tracking. I think the last I even really looked at the case was when they finally had released her remains and they did the memorial in Indiana. So, indicted, but So he was in Cave Creek, Arizona, when the jury indicted him, when the grand jury indicted him. The charges are dropped after whatever. See, I didn't know that he was in Cave Creek, Arizona. I thought he went back to Indiana. So there's a restaurant employee in Cave Creek, Arizona, that tells this Fox News Digital that he didn't know Barry Morphew by his first name and thought he was an entirely different person. Charlie Lutz, the bar manager at Harold's Cave Creek Corral, that is a mouthful, told Fox News Digital that Barry Morphew went by the name Bruce. So Lutz didn't know Barry Morphew's real name until June 20th, when news reports began to surface about murder charges relating to Suzanne Morphew's death. I was shocked that again, I was very caught off guard about all of it, Lutz said. I spent, honestly, as soon as I found out about it, I spent like 2 hours reading articles about it. I was so intrigued because I was like, this shit doesn't happen. So this is Lutz. Lutz said he began seeing Barry Morphew, or Bruce, as he knew the murder suspect after the coronavirus pandemic. He said Barry Morphew's go-to drink was beer, often switching between Miller Lite and Coors Light, adding that he was at the bar on June 13th, exactly 1 week before his arrest. He was always approached by other women at the bar. How did nobody know who this guy was? Like, how would he even get away with being called Bruce? And so his other name is Lee. Yeah, Bruce Lee. Oh, is Nunya here? Hi, Nunya. Yes, watch this whole live, and you'll get all of it. You'll get the whole shebang. I miss you, Nunya. The June 20th. But I mean, like, how did they not recognize him? He was always approached by other women at the bar, which I thought was a weird statement. Other women, like, okay, what's the original woman? You know what I mean? Adding that he would frequently approach other women and flirted with them. Libby told the Fox News Digital that she was one of the women that Barry Morphew flirted with at Harold's Cave Creek Corral. And she said at Harold's Cave Creek Corral in March of 2024, when Barry Morphew asked if she wanted to dance. He walked out to me and he said, hi. He's like, do you want to dance? And I said, you're Barry Morphew. And he's like, no, my name is Bruce. My name is Bruce. My name is Bruce. I don't know who this Barry Morphew is that you talk of. Yeah, true, Cinnamon Bear. I know you're right. It's just like, to me, I'm like, how would you not know? He's like, do you want to dance? And she's like, you're Barry Morphew. At the time, according to her, Barry Morphew said, no, I think you have the wrong person. And then a bit later, said an individual approached them and introduced Barry Morphew as quote unquote Lee from Indiana. Bruce Lee, you guys. This is so ridiculous. So ridiculous. According to the June 20th grand jury indictment, Barry Morphew went by the alias Lee Moore. A local gas station clerk had told the Fox News Digital he knew Barry Morphew by the name Lee. So public records indicate that Barry Morphew paid property taxes at the Stardust Trailer Park. It was Stardust Trailer Park, and he was hanging out at the corral. He was self-employed. In Colorado, he was a landscaper and an independent contractor, but he didn't hold any professional licenses to do either of those things in Arizona. So he's living at a trailer park in Arizona, going by the name Bruce Lee. or Bruce and Lee. So a Colorado-based lawyer and former deputy district attorney named Colin McCallan is the use of two aliases is uncommon. So that's weird. I mean, that certainly is evidence that this is a person who does not want to be known by his true name. Maybe even a little reckless with the use of those aliases. It's clear he did not want to be known by Barry. He's trying to live a double life. He's trying to live a double life. One is Bruce and one is Lee. Trailer park girls go round the outside, round the outside. Prosecutors wrote in the June 20th indictment that the chemicals BAM were found in Suzanne's bone marrow. They allegedly that Barry Morphew used BAM deer tranquilizer to sedate and transport deer on his farm when he lived in Indiana. He's also the only person with the prescription. We read all of that. Ultimately, the prescription showed that Suzanne Morphew disappeared. Only one private citizen living in the area had BAM. Morphew's attorney, before he had paid attorneys, he now is indigent and is getting public defenders. So he had his initial attorney at his arraignment, and obviously you just get an attorney because you're just being arraigned. So it's kind of, like if you watch a lot of TV shows, they just kind of just throw an attorney at you. Well, he had talked to this attorney, and it was a public defender, and that attorney was getting put on as his actual public defender for the remainder of the case. So he no longer has the high-end attorneys. He no longer has that money. And I don't think I talked about this much in the documentary, but part of the big issue is that her family has money. And one of the reasons that people believe the motive for the homicide is because he was going to lose all of that funding that he was getting essentially from her family. So when they moved from Indiana to Colorado, they actually quote unquote borrowed the money from her dad because they didn't have enough money to buy the house in Colorado. They still owned the house in Indiana, and the whole thing was they were going to pay her family back when the house in Indiana sold. But he never did anything above board. Like he was always shady with every business that he ever ran. I mean, I just saw Miss T's earlier, like, aw, it's okay. It was just to say and hi to everybody. What is the difference with one without her body to arrest him for trial? What is the difference? Well, I think that the biggest thing I'm seeing right now is that since they have her remains, they have that BAM in her bone marrow. And he's the only person who has access to it in all the surrounding counties outside of like like fish and game, like the wildlife people who theirs are all accounted for because they have to be logged. So I'm thinking like the big thing that they have is with having her body, and then also location of it. And the other things that we'd never heard before, which doesn't mean they didn't have it before, was like the stuff with the infotainment and telematics of his truck being intentionally turned off and on, or however he was doing that. I'm wondering if they're going to be able to prove that. I would think that they probably could after all this time, because that's also interesting. But I'm curious if they've ever been able to figure out where she was originally. Now, there was an interview I wanted to play for you guys because there was somebody who was talking about, hold on. He quitclaimed his Indiana house to Mallory, and supposedly her inheritance was given to Barry in cash. Did they pay for David Beller? Well, that's interesting too, because remember, they bought her a condo. They had bought her that condo out in Colorado. So Beller, who's the new attorney, who's supposed to be a good attorney, yet again, not from the public defender's office, but does do public defender work. Like as we've gone through these cases, you know how that is. Yet again, the government allows their predetermined conclusion to lead their search for evidence. No, I think they got their evidence. The case has not changed, and the outcome will not either. Barry Morphew's lawyer declined to comment. So they're still maintaining his innocence. Let me see if I can find this other one that I had up for you guys, because I wanted to play it, because this guy is talking about how he believes that she was moved twice. But now I got to know I don't know what I did with it. This one. I think it's this one. The bite close thing is, yeah, that's totally new too. So, well, new now that we know, now that they found her, they didn't have that before. So I'm very curious about that. Okay, so yeah, it's this guy. Let me make it bigger. I haven't watched this, but he thinks that she's moved twice. If I can get it to play.
Being the child of immigrant parents and...
Oh, also, I mean, once again, something that they knew, but we didn't, or I didn't anyway, was that his shorts were also in there. So I thought that was interesting. Not as big of a shit out. The lawyer put out a statement within an hour of Barry's arrest.
So you'd have to say it was moved at least once, right? Because, you know, there's certainly every indication that decomposition occurred in a place other than where the body was found. Now, I've seen that people have said the body's been moved at least twice. And I think that's a reasonable inference, but you can't know that for sure because that makes an assumption that the body was killed in one location, transported to a second location where the decomposition occurs, and then brought to the third location where the body's discovered. And I don't think you know that for sure yet. Well, so here's what you can say, is you can say that there's an absence of evidence suggesting that the clothing that she was found with is what she decomposed it. Investigatively, what does that mean in terms of, was she wearing these clothes at the time that she was killed, then undressed and then redressed, or was that clothing taken from a location and then brought to where she was ultimately recovered and then, you know, added to that site to make it look like she was wearing those clothes?
Okay. I wonder, is there a longer one of this? Because that was not enough. There's a longer video of that. You said, Lynn, did you say KKTV? Let me find that. Okay, so saying she's moved twice, I mean, that's like saying, okay, so he tranquilizes her. Either the tranquilizer kills her in the house, or he does something, smothers, kills, or strangles, or some type of asphyxiation inside the home, and then he puts her body wherever it decomposes and then moves her. Obviously, that would be twice. I thought they were trying to imply like that her remains, I guess those would be considered remains, but I thought they were talking like, remains. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's watch the, I want to do this too. We'll watch this so that we have it on here. It seems to intentionally confuse things for headlines. Yeah, that's what it seems to suggest, right? Yeah. It's just poorly worded. But yeah, I'm thinking that's what they meant. Let's do this one. And this, I think, unless somebody finds that elk info, dude, because I'm going to dig for that.
Granger knows that if you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on,
nope,
you go to great.
Don't want that. Thank you. Don't want Ranger. Why do you keep making me click it? Don't make me click it.
Lengths.
So it seems like, yes, she's probably killed inside the home. He takes her remains to wherever she's decomposed and then moves her. I am curious about that though. Like what it does? Okay, let me find it. Why is this muted still?
That are here today. I scheduled this briefing to provide an update.
Can you guys hear that
on the
okay?
Investigation that has been in the hearts
Sounds really
and
bad.
minds of the people of Chaffee County since Mother's Day of 2020.
That is terrible.
Suzanne Morphew was reported missing on Mother's Day 5 years ago. Law enforcement has never stopped working to obtain justice.
Any better?
For this mother of two, this daughter, this sister, and this beloved member of the Chaffee County community. Through the tireless efforts of the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, the Saguache County Sheriff's Office, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, I can announce today that the 12th Judicial District Grand Jury returned an indictment. The grand jury has indicted Barry Morphew on the single count of murder in the first degree. Law enforcement, the Chaffee County community, and Colorado as a whole has never stopped fighting for justice for Suzanne. Cold case homicides are tremendously difficult. They're difficult for the families of the victims and the communities who wait patiently for answers. While it may seem at times that the world forgets about these victims, I can assure you that my law enforcement partners and Colorado's law enforcement community do not forget. Every unsolved murder is a tragedy, and we must never give up on our efforts to find answers in these cases. My office will be prosecuting the indictment as Suzanne's remains were found in Saguache County, which is a county within my jurisdiction, the 12th Judicial District. I am extremely appreciative of Michael Doherty, who is the elected district attorney in Boulder County. He has consistently committed material resources to small rural DA's offices like mine to assist in the sometimes Herculean efforts to bring justice for victims in rural areas of our state. His commitment to rural Colorado he's continued his commitment with this case. He's provided me with the assistance of a chief deputy in the Boulder County District Attorney's Office to assist me with the investigation and the prosecution. Colorado's community of prosecutors is committed to assisting wherever the need arises. In addition to Mr. Doherty's assistance, District Attorney John Walsh of the Denver District Attorney's Office has committed to providing me with appellate guidance during the case proceedings. So today I have with me Chaffee County Sheriff Andy Rorick. I stand united with Sheriff Rorick and Under Sheriff Alex Walker. I stand united in announcing this indictment. Through this process, I have seen firsthand how deeply Sheriff Rorick and Under Sheriff Alex Walker and the entire Sheriff's Department in Chaffee County cares about this case. I am proud and appreciative of our cross-jurisdictional partnership and their hard and excellent work. I also stand with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who has never wavered in its commitment to this investigation, providing essential intelligence and investigative resources and expertise through the years. I also recognize and appreciate our continued partnership with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation has done incredible work, and their CBI agents and analysts have worked very, very hard to advance the goal of finding answers in this investigation. Here representing the CBI is Agent in Charge Chris Adams with CBI's Pueblo office. I also stand with Saguache County Sheriff Dan Warwick, who is here with me as well.
Okay, move on.
He and his office immediately answered the call to action when Suzanne's remains were found in the county he represents. Sheriff Warwick and his deputies are an essential part of this team, responding to the recovery of Suzanne's remains with the highest level of dignity and professionalism. I also want to continue to recognize what I have come to expect in my years as a prosecutor, and that is multi-jurisdictional and multi-state cooperation and partnership. I want to recognize the Arizona Department of Public Safety, who immediately responded to our team's request for assistance in locating and arresting Barry Morphew in the Phoenix area. Mr. Morphew will be held by Arizona authorities pending extradition proceedings in that state. And upon conclusion of those proceedings, Mr. Morphew will be transported to Alamosa County to stand trial on the indictment. This indictment has been unsealed upon the arrest of Mr. Morphew. I asked for this briefing to provide you with an update and provide information to the community. Me and my team recognize the importance of being laser focused on the prosecution and to speak with one voice.
Legit, none yet.
And so for that reason, all of the agencies that have been involved in getting us to this place, as well as the prosecutors that have been willing to assist me in this investigation and prosecution, they have all been instructed to send any media requests to my office. And so that's what I'd ask of you. In an effort to be transparent, I'd like to thank the the Office of the Judicial District in this district for making the indictment immediately available. And so you can get a copy of that indictment on the State Judicial's website. It is linked on a page labeled Cases of Interest, and it's under Alamosa. Barry Morphew is presumed innocent in this case and that presumption remains with him unless and until he is convicted at trial. And so once again, thank you for allowing me to provide an update to the community on this very important case. And I can take a couple of questions if you have them. Yes, sir. And
no idea what that question is.
The question was, what was Barry doing in the Phoenix area? I appreciate the question, and that information was still being gathered. We have been working very, very hard to make sure that we run down anything we can with respect to this investigation, and our law enforcement officers will certainly be following that. Yes, sir.
In the indictment, you noted that pharmacology experts testified that the ban would render the recipient unable to resist any restrictions to the recipient's ability to breathe. Do you believe the dosage of ban was so great it killed her, or that she was so incapacitated she was strangled herself?
And thank you for that question. I am looking forward to having our team present all of those facts in a court of law. Obviously, I would like to be able to provide my comments, but my ethical obligations will not allow me to. However, I am very appreciative of the Judicial Department for making that indictment available, and I look forward to having our team present this case in court. Yes, ma'am. Why now? That's a great question. And so we, as prosecutors in Colorado and law enforcement in Colorado, we are very dedicated to making sure that we don't forget the victims of cold case homicides. But we also understand that it is so important to make sure that we have done everything we can to bring a case to court. And we are proud of the work that we've done. Every victim of homicide, murder in Colorado deserves that kind of attention, deserves that kind of work from law enforcement. And I would say that having the opportunity to work on these cases and to bring justice for these victims has been very important to me. Yes. Yeah, let me. Yes, sir. Was Morphew surprised about the newspaper? Was he expecting this? And thank you for that question. The question is whether or not Morphew, what Mr. Morphew's reaction was. And I can tell you that that's going to be part of the case, and we look forward to presenting that in front of a jury. Yes, sir.
So the male DNA was found in Suzanne's car. Are you guys moving forward? Are you guys using that evidence for this trial?
And thank you for that question. The indictment has a wealth of information about that particular topic, as well as the probable cause that supports the arrest in this case. And obviously, we are going to do everything we can to make sure that justice is done for Suzanne. And that includes being as thorough as we can about the facts of the case.
Another question. When you arrest Barry in Arizona, so that's still investigated?
So the Arizona Department of Public Safety has been an incredible partner for us. They organized immediately when we asked them to respond when we received the indictment. So I very much want to thank the Arizona Department of Safety.
Why do I feel like she's giving like a speech at the Oscars?
And the question is, what would be the difference between the prosecution of this case and other prosecutions? You know, justice for cold case homicide victims remains a priority in the state of Colorado, both for prosecutors and for law enforcement. And that's despite any challenges that we may have had in the history of any particular case. That remains a priority for us. And so we have worked very hard to move forward in the case. This case is a different case, and I would refer you back to the indictment in this case. And we've worked very hard to move forward. Yes, sir.
On an emotional level or on a personal level, and it's okay if you repeat yourself, can you talk about the journey, your journey from the day this
Will Smith went totally live in this app.
Well, thank you for that question. The question is, what has this process looked like, essentially? What has this process been like for the family, for the community, for our law enforcement partners? And I can tell you that it has been a long road. It has been a long road, and the families of the victim have been so patient. The community has been so patient. But I can tell you that our law enforcement officers have never forgot, have never given up. And they have been working so hard to get to the place where we are today. And so it is never enough to say we're just going to forget about it because it's too hard. And so that has been the process for me. And I'll take maybe one more question here in the front. So it was in and around the town of Moffin, and that raises an important question that I want to address. And so the remains of Suzanne Morphew were found in Saguache County, and that's obviously a county in my jurisdiction. And so jurisdiction in this county is appropriate. I can tell you that I have reached out to and contacted my friend and colleague, elected District Attorney Jeff Lindsay, who currently covers Chaffee County. He is in full support of our efforts to prosecute this case here and has committed to providing any resources that we need to prosecute this case. And the question is I'm sorry, can you say that again? And I appreciate that question. We obviously have never given up on this investigation. And so working with our law enforcement partners, we were able to make that determination. So right now we have the indictment in front of us, and we're committed to working hard to get that done. So, and this will be the last question. Thank you so much.
Just one last question. From a community perspective, the community's been through a lot with the district attorney's office, and we've watched you take it over and repair it, stand here with law enforcement, something this community might not have seen in the past. We've watched you build a staff. Now we're at the point where we've got all kinds of television cameras here because you've done what you've done in this particular case. Speak to what kind of satisfaction you have.
The longest question in history.
Well, and thank you. The question relates to the status of our district attorney's office and where we've been in the last 3 years. And thank you for the question. The effort that we undertook to come to the San Luis Valley, that I undertook to come to the San Luis Valley and build the district attorney's office was quite tremendous. But I can tell you that the collaboration of prosecutors across the state to assist me, to assist my staff, to assist law enforcement has been absolutely.
Okay, I'm done with her. She's like giving a speech like, thank you for the question, thank you for bringing me here. So there's a couple things that she said that I found quite interesting though. One, she refers to cold cases a lot. Suzanne's case was never classified in the public or to the public as a cold case. If you remember, we left off in 2022 when on April 19th, when he walks free, that they can recharge him. And Linda Stanley, hell yeah, I do. I want to play it. Is it on your channel? I'll find it. Linda Stanley saying that they believed they knew where Suzanne's remains were and that it was just covered in snow, right? So then she's found in 2023. So like I'm very curious, like when this district attorney considers this was a cold case, because I mean, from the time that he was let go to the time that they found her, I don't know. Like that's interesting to me. And then also, she talks about like what she has done, like for the investigation. Well, it's only been under her jurisdiction since 2023 when her remains are found, since September of 2023. So I'm also very curious about that. She's like, what we've done for the last 3 years, blah, blah, blah. Well, I guess maybe 2 years, not even. But it was, that's what I'm saying. It was never told to the public that it was a cold case ever. It was always, we believe we know where she is and we just have to go find her. And then it was constantly being worked on. Okay, so this is the autopsy report. I actually don't know if I've ever, I had it on my computer, but I don't think I've ever actually read it. I wonder if I read it. I think I just read the articles that went with it when it came out. One Lone Tree, Suzanne Morphew song. Okay, perfect. I'll find it. Okay, so homicide by unspecified means in the setting of BAM. Reported history of recovery of a partial skeleton, medical port, and clothing scattered in and around a shallow grave. Okay, that might clarify some of the clothing conversation. Positive dental identification at the time of the autopsy. Reported history. Decedent was reported missing in Chaffee County, 510, and her bicycle and helmet were discovered without significant damage in separate locations within the county. No indication of perimortem trauma. Postmortem toxicology, ephemeral trabecular bone identified the BAM. Positive DNA identification, right and left femurs. Clinical history, decedent was receiving maintenance Rituxan chemotherapy after complete remission. That might also be the question about the losing the hair and not losing the hair difference of the chemo. Okay. So based upon the information provided to me at the time of this report, it is my opinion that Suzanne Morphew, a 52-year-old white female, died as a result of homicide by unspecified means in the setting of BAM intoxication. These drugs are marketed as a compounded injectable chemical immobilizer for wildlife, providing pharmacologically reversible analgesia, like that's like an anesthesia, I would assume, analgesia, sedation, and immobilization. If more information becomes available, this report may be amended. Homicide. Okay. Let's see. She was initially identified as Jane Doe. 3 large paper bags containing bones, 7 brown paper bags containing clothing, and 7 envelopes containing items to be described. The submitted items are radiographed. Okay. So the skeletal remains are submitted in 3 bags labeled Jane Doe skull, Jane Doe day 2 and 3, day 1. Okay. The 3 bags contain multiple human and non-human bones and fragments, dirt and wood fragment. The submitted human bones include the skull with the mandible, the sacrum, the multiple ribs, bilateral radii and ulni, maniburium, I don't know if I'm saying that right, and the sternum, right scapula, clavicle, right and left femora, right and left tibiae and fibulae, and multiple vertebrae. None of the bones bear any residual soft tissue. The right femoral head, which is the femur fragment, and the femur head is retained for toxicology testing prior to the release of the forensic anthropology examination. Okay, the Stop and Shop bags. Wonder how much of this they got in red Solo cups. The envelope contains a dirt-covered purple medical port labeled 6328. 7 brown paper bags remain in the custody of CBI and contain a pale patterned baklava baklava. A pink and light color leather work glove, a light color partial padded bra, a ripped dark blue gray hooded sweatshirt labeled crested boot, a torn green Nike tank top. Why would be torn? And I want baklava. I know the pastry. I never always do that. Whatever. Baklava. Screw it up every time. Then you guys want to go why I don't want to read stuff. Height ATS. Pink and light color leatherwork. I already said that. Okay, so Nike shorts, Yeti shorts, and a fabric fragment. The clothing and the fabric fragment are all weathered and covered in dirt. All paper bags were labeled respective to their contents. Baklava. Where's Brian when you need him? 6 envelopes remain in the custody of CBI, contain 5 fabric fragments and 1 weathered bullet. And this is what allegedly innocent I brought up earlier, was 1 weathered bullet and are labeled as such. Curious about the bullet. The medical devices released to the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office on 9/27/23. A disc of 2 x-rays is released to Dr. Kim. TA11 and TA12 are possible bones, and bones are received on 9/29/23 from CBI. To be included with the collection of the skeletal remains subsequently released to Dr. Diane France. After receipt of the remains back to El Paso County Coroner's Office, these packages appear to have contained probable rocks. Okay, 3 teeth are released to the CBI. The skeletal remains are released to Dr. Diane France for the forensic anthropology examination on 10/3, and then they're returned to the El Paso County Coroner. 1 paper bag containing 4 packets of botany bug stuff and 2 packets from Hoodie are received on 1/16. The femurs are sectioned, and the proximal and distal metaphysis for toxicology and DNA samples. The right femur proximal, right femur distal, left femur proximal, left femur distal. Okay. The distal femurs, right femur distal, and left femur are released to the CBI for DNA testing. Okay. Man, this is just, they just send them in all kinds of stuff. That's all I have. No wonder I didn't think this was anything big. Okay, well, where's the... Butte. See, booty. It's a boat. It's a butt. It does say like there's bones and some non-human bones, but they don't talk about any of that. Like, how do we know what they are? Okay, I'm curious now. I just went by it. I did. Further up. Did I read it and not remember reading it? I mean, that's the only thing I remember is this there was multiple human and non-human bones. Where does it talk about them? Did I really not, did I read it and not remember reading it? Non-human bones. Okay. Okay. So it does it. That's the non-human bones, the animal bones. So where do we find out that they're elk? That's what I'm so curious. Where do we find out that they're elk? Don't Doxy says, did you get to the part of supposedly Scary Barry going on apps for sex trafficking teens? Where's that at? Later, we learned they were elk. So you're saying it's a Bigfoot? No big toe. No, unfortunately, there was no big toe. Don't dox me. Where's that at? Look at you. Someone found out that they were elk. All right. Okay, so don't dox me. Where did you go? I think there's Bigfoot. So you can say whatever you want. Could have been a squirrel. Squirrel. Well, so where does it say something about that at? Did I miss that too? Did I read that and not remember reading it? Where's that at? Where that he was on apps for, where does it even talk about the apps? All right, hold on. I gotta go to Allegedly Innocent's channel real quick. And I'll drop you guys the link for Allegedly Innocent. It's also under my recommended channels. So if you don't find it in here, you'll find it under that. I'm sure it's probably under video. There it is. Okay, let me have this up so I have it ready to go. I'm not gonna get like Allegedly Innocent. I'm not gonna get like copyright stricken, right? You know, I gotta watch out for that. He was talking on Teen Talk apps, and he was a regular at a YouTube channel where the girl reads her diary about her underage sescapades. Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, that thing was 129 pages long. I haven't actually read it in years. It was probably 85 Chipmunks and the Turkey. I never heard that. A cocktail of drugs known as BAM, which I can't say any of those names, and everybody makes fun of me, used to tranquilize large animals like elk, deer, and black bears. Yes, just a little strike. Okay, good. You know, I gotta watch out for those. I gotta watch out for those copyright strikes. My fan favorites love to come for me. Okay. So again, thank you guys as always for being here and catching up on all things with Barry Morphew and Suzanne Morphew. Like I told you guys, it's a case that's extremely near and dear to me, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to learn about her case or to refresh your memories on her case. You know, like I said, it's a case that's important to me, and it's one that I will be following throughout whatever does happen with Barry Morphew. And so I'm glad that you guys are also like in the know. So this is Allegedly Innocent's channel. I told you guys at the beginning of this live, if you weren't here, she's covered this case from the get-go. She's gone to the hearings, done just great work, and always advocates for Suzanne. There's a couple other channels that I don't think they really do much anymore, but they were really huge advocates for Suzanne. Also, I'm not sure if I don't even know if they are around much. But I will make sure I put them in the description too, because if anybody does want to go back and look and do research and see all the things that transpired, you know, back in 2020 when people were trying to figure out what the hell was going on, you know, feel free to do all the research that you want, because the more people who know, the better. Even though I don't think it was a cold case, I'm just happy that we're headed in the right direction. freaking finally. So I am going to play this by Allegedly Innocent, and thank you for letting me play it. I love you guys. I will see you guys mañana. We're going to play this, and then it's going to play the outro, and I'll see you guys next time. Love ya.
Barry Morphew had it all, a millionaire's golden crown, big house in the Rockies, king of a small town. But darkness brewed in his heart, a secret cold as stone. Suzanne went missing, her fate he would never own. In a shallow grave marked by one lone tree, under Colorado stars where no one would see. With a shovel and lies he buried his sin, but the truth has a way of creeping back in. Oh, Barry, you ran to Cave Creek, Arizona, hiding in a biker bar, waiting for your secret bust. From riches to ruins, a trailer park thrown. Now you're locked in a cage, forever alone. He fled to Arizona to outrun the law. Or was it his own guilt, secret wish to be caught? With villains before him, real desert outlaws hide. The ghost of Suzanne whispers to him all through the night. Suzanne would get her justice, things would be made right. For King Barry in his camper cage, no escape from justice light. From a mansion to an airstream, his empire now shattered dreams. Barry now alone with no home, no friends, a man who's lost everything. Suzanne took her time, the chess pieces in place. As Barry hid in fear, Suzanne prepared her case. They would find her body abandoned in a shallow grave, and Barry's murderous acts revealed by an insane path. Oh, Barry, you ran to Cave Creek, Arizona, hiding in a biker bar, a place that made him feel ever lonelier. From riches to ruins, a trailer park thrown. Now you're locked in a cage, forever alone. In a cell with killers, thieves by his side. No more mountain sunsets, no place to hide. The elk still wander where Suzanne was laid. Her light shines bright, it will never fade.
Barry Morphew, 10/17/67.
Thank you, sir. And it does look like you are here today on a warrant from the state of Colorado, and they have indicated that they want to extradite you back to the state of Colorado.
Do you dare to follow me down? Head into the unknown, down the rabbit hole, where it stops no one knows. into the unknown.